Hello, and welcome to episode 220 of Flix and a Six. The juice is loose. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Costanzo. With me, forever and always, the man, the myth, the mother, Alessandro Biolsi. Say hello, Al.
I forgot to write an intro last week.
Amazing. On this week's episode, we've got trailers galore, potential Bond casting, WTF, and our current consumption, all before diving into our flick of the week, The Creator. But first, Al, what are we drinking?
We're drinking a fairly old beer. This is a pre-hiatus, pre-terrible year last year beer. It still smelled pretty damn good, so I'm guessing it'll be good.
It smells good.
Which is good considering
it's like, don't tell me what to do, can, with your keep cold, enjoy fresh. I didn't follow either of those rules because I'm pretty sure this was one of the ones that was like left out for a bit before it made its way back into the fridge.
Mine maintained temperature integrity. However, the age is obviously not ideal. We're drinking a Treehouse Jjjuliusss.
Jjjuliusss. That's 3 J's and 3 S's for those keeping score.
You're really trying to make that a thing. For this special rendition of Jjjuliusss, originally brewed for our 3rd anniversary party, we pushed the level of citrusy hop character to the fringes of obscenity through additional kettle and dry hopping with the base Jjjuliusss blend. Further, we amend the process.
So now we're adding punctuation?
Yeah, right? Further, we amend the process of the base beer to create a denser and richer malt profile. Decanted carefully in a teku glass, Jjjuliusss pours thickly.
Come on. What? Sell it for me.
No, I'm not singing.
Make Sting proud.
It's bad enough that I do that terrible British accent once a year. Now you want me to sing too?
You can just pronounce all of the... You're pronouncing too few J's.
I said Jjjuliusss. I just didn't enunciate them, but I did stutter through them.
Fair enough.
It pours thickly with a densely packed head and gives off aromas of orange juice, melon, guava. I want to say guava? And mango gummies. The flavor follows suit with jam-packed and satisfying juicy fruit character enveloping the palate. This beer is intensely citrusy when fresh and keep rubbing it in, beer. And over the course of a few weeks in the fridge, softens into a supremely well-rounded, richly fruity, densely hop-saturated delight.
Wait, so drink, is a few weeks when they want me? What's the optimal drinking time, Julius?
It says dreaming of spring and February of 15th, 2022.
Yikes! This might be the oldest beer we've ever had.
2 years? Probably not.
Oh man, well if we don't make it, it was the beer.
Or
I gotta ask,
mysterious black floaters in my beer because
I
found little speckles of black stuff floating in the very richly or densely thick, whatever the fuck it said, head of the beer. There's too many adjectives and adverbs in that.
The beers are in the fridge long enough that the cans are starting to experience a half-life. That's not great.
Oh god.
I want to know. So, okay, I understand like trying to sell your beer or sell your coffee, whatever, your wine, like through like the description of the notes. Like I get that. Like it makes it sound more appealing and exciting. But where do you draw the line between it tasting like mango and mango gummies?
That's a good question. I was a little confused by that as well.
Yeah. I saw a coffee today at the brew house on near us, and they have like a whole bunch that are like made in the style of other things, and this one in particular was like described with like beer descriptors, like notes of certain types of hops and
coffee.
Yeah, and gushers.
Okay.
And I was like, well, color me interested.
I do think it's interesting. I have noticed with some like fancier coffees that they do like hint towards like fruity characteristics in the coffee, and 9 times out of 10 I tend not to pick that up in coffee and drinking it black. So I do find that. Whereas like a lot of the other like maltier type of flavors that they point to, I will catch those.
I'm with you on that for sure. And for the longest time, I actually didn't like those fruitier notes in coffee. That
Yeah,
being
I
said,
had
when
one and
I
I
got
really didn't like it. I picked it up and I was like, I don't want to pick this up.
I don't no more. That being said, as of like the past like few months, I've been really getting into it, and brewed properly, I feel like you can actually taste the things. But if you just do it the way that you're doing all of your other coffee, like it might not come through unless that's like the effective method to extract the flavors.
Mm.
Messing around with the grind and the temperature of the water has helped me figure out like to actually like get there. And one of the ones that I've been, I feel like I'm on my like, fifth bag of it is like this anaerobic Ethiopia blend. It's got like strawberry, watermelon, something or other like notes in it. And when you smell it like out of the bag, it's like, okay, like what? That's not what coffee is. But it's really good. I'm on probably like I said, I think it's like my fifth bag in a row. But they are like that particular like roasting method. They're kind of like out for the season, so it might not be back until next year or until they can get it going again, which is fine because I think I've overdone it.
Well, I do like to rotate my coffee so I don't get sick of any one of them. So I'll buy like a couple of bags at a time, and then I'll drink all the way through one, and then go to the next one. I'll usually like alternate like dark roast, medium roast, so that like
yeah, that's
muscle confusion for my mouth.
I think I went for a long time. I wasn't satisfied with all the different ones I was trying. So then I found one that I liked and I stuck with it for a bit. And now I'm getting to the point of like, I think I want to change it up a little bit. I've been sticking with the same roaster for a while though, because they have enough variety and they're local. So it's kind of cool to get super fresh beans. Like literally pick it up from right where it's roasted. It's quite nice. But I think we should stop talking about coffee and give this beer a try.
Sure.
Cheers.
Cheers. Again?
For the listeners, Elio left one of his toys on my desk, which is a avocado guitar, and it's got some bangers on it.
So I was proud of myself. I remember seeing an actual like stringed guitar. I don't remember if it was actually a guitar or if it was a ukulele. But like the body of it was
a little lute.
It may have been a lute.
Could have been a lute.
It was definitely an avocado, and I was calling it a guaculele.
Oh yeah, no, I'm on board with that. Oh, that's nice. That's wonderful. I just realized that my volume level looks like it might be spiking. Is it? It's not maxing out for you, is it?
I don't know. I mean, you sound normal. You did you or I did kind of freeze there for a second.
All right. Well, I think I'm just going to leave it and let the editing take care of that. So, what do you think of this? It was more bitter than I expected.
Oh, really? I didn't. I mean, as it really sits on the palate after taking a couple sips, I do detect some lingering bitterness, but an IPA should have some bitterness. But to me, the overwhelming flavor I'm getting is the orange juice, which is
definitely. I mean, I feel like it's maybe orange juice, but like trending towards grapefruit juice. The bitterness is definitely post drink. It's like it's the after effect in your mouth. But the only reason I was surprised is I feel like I don't notice that on their beers usually.
It is noticeable to me, but it's not unpleasant and somewhat expected. So
no, not unpleasant. I wasn't expecting it just because I have my vague memory of what their beers are like is not that, but I'm here for it. It kind of tastes like it's almost like the pith of whatever citrus fruit was, just like hanging out there at the end.
Again, tracks. Mm-hmm. It definitely does smell. I definitely catch melon and guava in there. I would. I think you have to press me to notice the mango. I can't speak to the gummies aspect.
Sure. The gummies aspect, I kind of wonder if that comes with like, I think I kind of like mango might be like the last fruit that I taste at the end. And then maybe like that mouthfeel of like a stickiness. Maybe that's what they're going for with that description.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, I detect that more.
You're like, I'm not apologizing for them.
No, I detect it more on the nose than on the
Sure.
and the palate itself. So
preparation age is good on the whole. As always, I love Treehouse's logo. That Whomping Willow with the treehouse in it.
It is like the Whomping Willow. You're right.
It's quite lovely. And their can art, the simplicity of their can art, always catches my eye. I love a good eye-catching can. I mean, in a world where there are so many craft beers, like it really does help for you to have something that grabs my attention in the case.
And I particularly like the can art for the regular beers, and then their spin-offs of those. Like whereas their other kind of like single special releases tend to have specialized can art, but like the regular Jjjuliusss being like that orange one with the white, relief. This one being the white.
Yeah, they like knocked it out.
Relief,
Mm-hmm. I like that. A variation of Jjjuliusss, which just makes sense. Well done. I see what you did there, and I applaud you. Where are you at vis-a-vis the Thuckles?
I would say probably 3 Thuckles. I mean,
3 Thuckles.
This might be a 4th Thuckler if it was fresh.
The ever elusive 4th Thuckle. I gave it out last week, I think.
You did.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm 3 feels right for this, and always happy to have Treehouse on the show.
Even old Treehouse?
Even old. I'll take old Treehouse over a lot of beers. I'm looking at you, Budweiser. You're like, you're not even really beer at this point. You're just, yeah.
What even is American lager? No, seriously.
Always asking the hard hitting questions.
What is it? It just means you have
Budweiser.
It just means you have corn and rice in there. It's just cheap adjuncts to thin out the flavor profile.
Cheap adjuncts. That's what the sub name of the beer should be.
I mean, just like, don't get me wrong, I love American beer. I just don't love American lager because it's not a real beer. It's some marketing bullshit, basically.
It's Budweiser, the natural flavors of beer.
It's marketing bullshit that is trying to correct for the sins of prohibition 100 years ago. And we were rewarded with 70 years of liquid trash.
Stop me if I've told you this story or told it on the show before, or both. I guess it would be both. Never mind. But did I ever tell you?
Well, you made fun of what I was saying, and then you're going to say that.
I guess. Did I ever tell you about the incident with the Ninja Stars, and the Budweiser?
I don't remember, actually.
Years ago, as a child, in our first house, I was down in my dad's workshop, which we had a sub level, like what most people would call like a family room or a den. It wasn't a den because it had windows, but it was like a family room. But we used to call it the basement.
Wait, is it not allowed to be a den if it has windows?
Yeah, I don't think it is. I'm fairly certain that that's the distinction as far as like realtors go. I could be wrong, but that's how I remember.
You may be right. I honestly never knew. I always
You're making me feel like I made it up.
No, I was surprised that you had a definitive definition of what goes into a den, because I always assumed a den was like a colloquial term used for just like a room that we don't know what to do with it. Like,
you and I walking to a friend's house, and you go, "Wow, this is a really nice den," and I'm like, "It's not a den." that's
This isn't a den; it's a vestibule. You fuck.
But anyway,
actually, it's not a vestibule; it's a 3 Seasons room. You ignorant swine.
Jane, you ignorant. So we used. I mean, I called it the basement, but it was the family room, and then there was another down even further. There was a legit basement, no windows, really low. And that's where my dad's workbench was, and the laundry room, all that stuff. And he one day I was down there with him while he was working on something, and I spotted on his workbench that he had. I'm calling it a Ninja Star. It's like a shuriken. Is that the right word for it?
To go back,
that's what we used to call it.
The official term is a shuriken, but the colloquial term is a Ninja Star.
All right, so we had a Ninja Star. And I was like, I don't know why he had it, but he had one, and he was like, yeah, he's like, he's like I was like, why? Like, can I see it? He was like, no, like you can't see it. It's all the way up there for a reason. It's legit. Like it's like it was a real one, and it was sharp.
Yeah, they're
It's
super
like, but
dangerous.
we'll use it. We'll like, I'll help you, and we'll try it out. So he like
Wait,
stood up.
sorry, how old were you when this?
I don't know. I was young.
Too young to be using a shuriken.
Yeah, I'm gonna. Let's go 5.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I'm picturing like 11 or something. You know, like where there's like some motor skill possibly.
We moved by then.
This is at the old. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So he sets up a boxes. There was like a Budweiser box, and he put it on there, and he was like, "All right, step back." He's like, He had me. He like was like holding his hand over my like over like my brow, just in case. Like he was being very very careful with me. And then he threw the Ninja Star at the boxes. The Budweiser box was a full case of Budweiser, and it punctured the beer, and it just started spewing Budweiser everywhere. And I remember this so vividly in my mind, and I was I need to ask him if he actually remembers this happening. But I don't know. I always think of that. When I think of Budweiser, I think of 2 things. I think of Pop, and I think of that day with the Ninja Star.
That's true. I was throwing an awful lot of slander at Budweiser, and it was Pop's favorite beer.
It was. But at the time, I get it.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching him drink it when I was 7, I certainly didn't have a discerning beer palate or knowledge.
Yeah, it wasn't in my. That's before you knew that there were different kinds. You were like, it's beer. That's beer. I recognize that can. That can is beer. That's what the Budweiser can was.
Yeah. When I think of children and throwing stars, I think of South Park. Now, to be fair, that episode had come out probably 10 years after you were too young to be throwing
star. That's another one. I like that.
But I know you're not a big South Park guy, but you must have seen that episode.
I like it. I just had never gotten into it.
Well, I don't mean in the sense of like not like disliking it, just like you didn't like watch the bulk.
No, there's definitely a huge blind spot.
Blind spots.
Blind spotting.
Did you see that episode, the anime episode where the kids go to like there's like a flea market or a carnival or something, and they all buy like actual martial arts weapons, and then every time they take the weapons and are like doing the thing, they like do it in like anime style. And it's
so
like,
I definitely haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen the episode, but I've seen a clip, like a meme, like with one of them doing that. So I'm assuming that's what it's from.
So one of them had the shuriken, and the whole thing was like they became like they were like superheroes or whatever, and they're like doing the whole thing. Like they would occasionally do their episodes where like they were like superheroes, and Butters was Professor Chaos, and one of them, I forget who, has the shuriken and throws it at Professor Chaos, and the shuriken goes into Butters' eye. And now they have to find a way to try to like bring him to the hospital or whatever. And at some point, I think they might have leave him in a ditch to try and hide the fact that they've punctured his eye with this. And I forget why he's like all dirty and stuff like that. And people start thinking that he's like an abandoned puppy with a shuriken in his eye, and it becomes this whole dramatic thing for the rest of the episode.
Oh my gosh!
It's one of those classic episodes. That was from probably like 2006 or something like that.
Right. Oh man, South Park, you're silly. One other note on Budweiser. I have a coworker who refers to standard Budweiser as Bud Heavy, and I wasn't sure if you've ever heard that before. Yeah, that's a normal thing. When he said it, and I got a chuckle out of it because I had never thought of it that way.
Well, what's the opposite of Bud Light?
Bud Heavy. Yeah. Yep. It's Bud. But what if they make something heavier? What if they make something heavier?
Well, whatever happened to Bud Ice?
Well, Bud Ice. Yeah, that was just more alcohol, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, that was college. That was college for sure.
Did they still have? No, they didn't still have Bud Ice.
They did.
I thought it didn't exist.
They absolutely did, because we used to play beer pong with Bud Ice at Jay's.
You sure it wasn't Bud Light Platinum?
Oh no, I'm certain.
Okay.
Yeah. I also remember people getting very excited when they found it, so I'm not sure if it was like a re-release type thing.
Okay, because that was my point. Is I thought that ceased to exist like 20 years ago.
No, it was actually, I'm pretty sure Bud Ice was the infamous night that the Spartan rules started.
Did we have Bud Ice that night?
No, that was the second time that he did it.
Oh, okay.
The first time he was very drunk.
I mean, he wasn't sober the second time.
Yeah, but we only played a couple of games and he was very drunk, which he was so I think it was Bud Ice that night too. Bud Ice. I haven't thought about Bud Ice in a long time. Thanks for that trip down memory lane.
Well, honestly, the whole reason that I even remembered whatever about Bud Ice was I think the one time that my mom and Pop-Up came to visit us in Vermont, I think my dad bought Bud Ice for Pop-Up because he couldn't find regular Bud Heavy. It might have been when Bud Ice was brand new, or maybe it was brand new and my dad was like, "Oh, let's try this. He loves regular Budweiser. Maybe he'll like this,"
Yeah. What was do we know what the verdict was?
This was like 1996 or something like that. I don't remember.
Sure. That's fair.
I just remember that it was a thing. Like,
frankly, not even certain why I asked.
No, it's a
Get
fair
your dad
question.
on the horn. How did Papa feel about Bud Ice? What are you talking about?
I have to know.
Why does this sound like code?
Well, so the funny thing is I actually don't remember this, but my dad likes telling the story. At that time, they came and visited for like a week or two, whatever it was. Like they were there for several days, to warrant that sort of trip with them at that age and their level of health at that time. They weren't looking to turn around and jump in the car for 8 hours, whatever it was, 3 days later.
Right. Good for them driving themselves up there too.
Yeah.
Right. Nicely done.
And my mom came again after Pop-Up had passed when Gianna was born.
And point of fact, my mom doing all the driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Pop-Up didn't have a license for like 50 years or something.
Yeah.
So
ever since the war, and I've always wanted to hear that story.
There is a story. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, same. Maybe we could unearth that. Easter's coming. Let's ask.
Well, I would say Uncle John would probably be the one to ask, right?
Oh, that's a good point.
Because he's the oldest. He probably has that knowledge, if anyone does.
Yeah. I just picture Pop-Up like if he was still around. Like, I don't drive, not since the war.
But anyway,
sorry. Mystery.
It was I've heard stories about when Pop-Up was still working. It was a whole thing that they would have a cocktail before dinner. They had the stereotypical thing from like sitcoms.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came up to visit, obviously, Mom and Papa weren't doing anything. Pop-Up wasn't super mobile at that time, having emphysema, not being able to walk around a lot.
No.
He could get around when he wanted to, but he had to pick and choose his spots, right? But it was a whole thing. My dad would call when he was leaving work because, he was still working like normal. He wasn't off. Mm-hmm. My mom wasn't working at the time. I think Dominic was probably, less than 1 year old or something like that.
Yeah.
And so my dad would call from the office phone to let Mom know when he was coming home. It was 15-minute drive home from work for him. So Pop-Up would hear my mom take the call, and he would get up and he would make drinks.
I love that
for him and Dad, and I think my mom and my mom as well. But he would have, Mom was cooking dinner, my mom was helping her cook dinner, and Pop-Up was making the drinks, so the drinks were ready as Dad was walking in the door.
Love it.
And I know my dad really likes that. He loved Pop-Up and
they got to experience that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's it's something so lost to time. Especially like even the call home that you're on your way. Mm-hmm. Like that's not a thing anymore.
I mean, maybe you
would text.
Yeah,
but at the most, I feel like that's what you would do. You would send a text. It would be. It would actually feel foreign at this point to call for that reason.
Well, to be fair, my dad still does it a lot of times because he has an hour and a half drive home. So,
sure.
So part of it is, he'll call my mom because he's going to be alone in the car for an hour and a half. And it's, hey, let me chat to keep myself awake and alert, while driving home and all that. So, but
sure.
Outside of that specific circumstance, right? Like, you're right. If he worked somewhere 20 minutes away, he would probably just send her a text when he's walking out to the car.
Yeah. I often call Kim to let her know I'm coming home from work.
Honey, I'm coming down the stairs.
So Elio does lately he's been doing this thing at around like 5:30, which is a time that I should be stopping. So I'm starting to stop then, so that I can at least hang out and cook dinner and stuff. But he'll come. He just comes waltzing in my room slowly, in my office slowly, waltzing. And he's like, and then he waltzes up to the door, and he opens up, and he waltzes in. And then when he gets past my monitor, where he knows that I can see him, even though I can see him the whole time underneath it, he doesn't know I can see him. He creeps around the side of the monitor, and he's like, "Daddy, you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, like, I'm great." Oh, ever concerned, that boy. It's lovely. That's enough beer talk. Why don't we get into some news and nuggets?
Wait, that was all beer talk?
I mean, it was under the chapter of the 6. So let's get into some news and nuggets. We've got a lot of trailers to go through today.
Yes.
I think we could start there. The other ones seem like they might be shorter topics. So let's go through the trailers. We're going to start at the top with probably the most important one, the Acolyte trailer game.
Yes.
Where are you on that?
Well, first and foremost, that poster that came out the day before.
The poster is better than the trailer.
I mean, I liked both, but the poster was badass.
Yeah.
So it was, if anyone hadn't seen it, it's the hilt of a lightsaber on like a gray background, and in place of the ignited lightsaber blade, it's a streak of blood. That's badass.
Yeah. Either it's just to show something cool and dark and gritty, or we're working in a time when the lightsabers just aren't that strong yet, and you just hack at people, and instead of cauterizing the wound, they're just bleeding all over the place.
Actually, more on that in a minute, because I did a little bit of homework on this.
Oh.
But
I saw some daggers, too.
I believe it was more to indicate the fact that this is going to be dealing with Jedi have apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
Sith have acolytes.
Okay.
Sith blades red like blood.
Yeah.
I think that's the gist of
sure. Yeah.
That is, that's the double meaning and all of that. But I'll get to ask me again at the end of our discussion about the cutting ability of lightsabers, because I have something.
Oh, okay, cool.
2 things, but one main thing.
Okay. Yeah.
The trailer itself.
The trailer itself, all in all, I didn't get a ton out of it, which is fine because I don't want too much. I got just enough.
Very intentional.
Yeah, like just enough to keep you, let you know it's coming. Don't, please, Disney. I know you're listening. If not, just that's it. That, and then the show. I don't need 3 more. No, but there's going to be 4 more.
Well,
that's the problem.
My point is, you can guarantee there will be at least 1 more. And you know what? To be fair, I wouldn't mind seeing a bit more. A smidge. Just
a smidge, but just don't ruin it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look how intentional this was. There was an awful lot of negative space in this trailer. There's an awful lot of call and response going on where you can't see who is being referenced, and there is a void of a person or people who they are walking and talking around very intentionally.
But keep it that way.
Yeah,
in any of the trailers.
I think the mystery aspect of it is something that they want to be a part of this experience.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this being a water cooler show where you have to watch it the day it drops so that you're ready to talk about it the next day.
Which, to be fair, that's what they've been doing with the Star Wars shows.
Yeah, except I've noticed over time people waiting to watch them.
But that's a choice, though. That's a choice you can make.
Yeah, it is. But there are certain things where it's where you almost feel you have to. It's you have to watch it. I have to watch it this night. But
sure. I mean, The Mandalorian first season was the first thing that brought that back after the end of Game of Thrones. When Game of Thrones ended, we had a void. There was think pieces being written about, is this the death of the monoculture? Is this the last bastion of that experience? And no, we've had oases in that desert. We had the end season of Better Call Saul. We've had the end of Succession. We've had The Mandalorian. There have been points of light along that path through the darkness of people watching whatever, whenever they want to. There are now a couple of things that we get up for as events. And the major Star Wars shows have been that. The Mandalorian has been that. maybe not so much Obi-Wan, to an extent maybe Ahsoka, but certainly not Book of Boba Fett. But this show, I don't know what the wider buy-in will be. It might just be Star Wars fans who are excited for this show. This may not have the mass appeal that Mandalorian has, but I think among the Star Wars fandom, there's going to be people clamoring to watch it the day of.
Yeah, no, and there will, but I felt like with like Boba Fett, it felt not Boba Fett with Mandalorian, it felt like it was kind of just a given. Like anybody who was interested enough to watch it the day that it dropped. Whereas like the season 2, I think people were still kind of in that boat, and then after that, even I wasn't in that boat, and it was just. I was just like, I would catch up on like 3 at a time, and in like multiple, like a handful of sittings instead of each week. And some of that was like time of life, and some of it was just that it was like I was happy they were coming out, but I wasn't like, I don't know, waiting like with bated breath just to watch the next episode. I'm already like.
It's also
there.
Tough that the release date they've chosen is Wednesdays, which is when we record.
That's fair. But Mandalorian, though, I was at the point where whatever the earliest you could watch it was when I was watching it, like the first season. Like I was like, I can't wait to see this, and I was so exciting. I'd love to feel that again. I don't know that I will. This definitely like I won't be waiting long between episodes for this one because I'm going to want to see it right away. And if the only thing that will push it back is we're probably not going to reschedule this show unless we want to for the sake of that show. But I'm looking forward to it.
It's something we can consider.
I like that era too. Like I think that it's cool. It's like we're talking 100 years before Phantom Menace. Like about.
Yes. Well,
right?
It's something we've heard a lot about, but we haven't seen. So like it is time to start seeing that because we know that we are reaching. I don't know that we'll ever 100% reach it, but we're reaching kind of a saturation point with the timeline, specifically that 20-year time of the rise of the Empire, where some of the most compelling stories are told there. Maybe all of the most compelling stories are told in that timeline because it's the time of greatest struggle where we watch all of these things that feel super life and death on the small scale and on the large scale. And frankly, the story of A New Hope, there is a all-encompassing empire that a ragtag bunch is trying to take down.
Yep.
That's all we needed for that movie and that trilogy to really come off without a hitch. And then, we have the prequels. So we know there's a time jump in there, and we see so many things written and played and watched in that period of time. But to understand the scale of what of what the Republic looked like, and then its fall, and then the size of the Empire, we didn't know. Okay, there is a galaxy-spanning empire, but what does that look like? We've now seen what that looks like. So there are a million stories you can tell of tiny bits of rebellion that maybe were coordinated and maybe were not coordinated.
Yeah, for sure. I really loved back in the day, Knights of the Old Republic. I loved being in that world so far removed from the standard Star Wars universe, like at the time, where it really like captured my imagination. So I feel like this is like the closest thing that we're getting to, before. And aside from Young Jedi's, which doesn't really count. Elio's super into it. Star Wars with the blue guy. That's the name of that show.
Oh.
Yeah. Big fan of Nubs.
Who's the blue guy?
Nubs?
I don't know who that is.
He's just like a little furry Jedi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, big fan. I'm looking forward to just like seeing what they do in that space. Like I love we get some like teases of it. Like in in Survivor, right? There was obviously like we flash back to older times. We have some characters that were able to linger from the past. So that's cool. So I'm excited to like start exploring that area a little bit more in depth. I think that there's going to be a lot of, this in particular seems like it's going to be like realizing that the threat of the Sith is potential, if not like real and in your face. Whereas like if they go even further back, it'll be fun to see how they explore like maybe like some like puppetry behind the scenes that people don't realize, or like
Well, I
make it
actually
like
think
more
that's
like
what this show will be, because the whole thing, if you remember the line from Phantom Menace, was, the Sith have been extinct for 1,000 years or whatever it was, or for generations, whatever it is. So technically, this period of time, we should be not aware the Sith are active, right?
Sure.
There are people who are bad. There may even be people who possess the ability to harness the Force who are bad, but are they or are they not Sith, right? Like, that's not something that should, like, have a greater awareness. Maybe someone discovers that, and that person may end up being killed, or that person may become a Sith. We'll see over the course of the show. I would suspect we cannot go through a whole season of this without seeing Yoda. Yoda's 900 years old by Return of the Jedi, so he would still be, fairly old in this show.
Yeah.
Maybe none of the other. I don't know what the lifespans of all the other species of Jedi are, of the other recognizable characters from the prequel trilogy.
It looks like Plo Koon might be there as a young Jedi.
Is he? I didn't notice. I actually have to rewatch.
I think they live to be like 3-ish hundred, 4-ish.
Okay, I don't
know. There's something there too. It's on the ridge. Like, there's like a ridge like overseeing the trees, and on the bottom right you can see a character that is clearly that species and the Jedi. Okay. So there's just an assumption that it would be.
No, like I said, I watched the trailer once last week. Mm-hmm. I would like actually. I don't typically go back to trailers. I probably should have before this episode, just to get, like, I was just so like caught up in the wow, here's a new Star Wars trailer that I didn't like necessarily retain all of the information, other than more like the impressions of it that I got than like the specific details.
Sure.
And those details are going to betray us anyway, because we know that those trailers lie to us all the time.
Oh yeah, they're all fake. I liked seeing the martial arts, the Force martial arts. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
I want to see a lot of that. I think that'll be awesome. And then there is that one scene in the trailer where it's like, look into the future or something. I don't know, I'm paraphrasing. Like, look into the future. What do you see? I see this. I see that. I see fire. Go to the dean's office. like just get out of here. Like, I'm gonna keep an eye on this one.
But it looks like we had a pretty cool cast. There's a couple of recognizable faces, which I did not realize or did not remember anyway, because this show has been gestating for a long time. Obviously, the pandemic has part of that, because apparently this took a really long time to make, because they are using much more sets and on-location shooting than the other shows have used. Much less of the, what is that, the volume? Is that what the thing is called? That they use to do those backgrounds that they like kind of invented for The Mandalorian or whatever?
Yeah, that like weird. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't know what they call it, but I know what you're talking about.
That panoramic screen thing that they use to shoot. So apparently they're using much less of that in this show, so that led to it taking a lot longer to make, in addition to all of the other pandemic rules, plus the strike, plus all the shit put together.
Yeah, but like good, because I feel like that attention to detail is what makes it feel Star Wars. So
sure,
I mean, they pulled it off with The Mandalorian. Don't get me wrong; like that felt good.
But. Well, like all things, it should be a tool in your toolbox. There are certain scenes that it's perfectly valid to use that for, and there are other scenes that I think would benefit from more practical on-set stuff, or on-location stuff if you're outdoors and whatever. So, these all should be options to be used. It should not be one thing that you use 100% of the time.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I thought it was cool. I like to see some of the martial arts and stuff. This should be a time when the Jedi should be super talented, because they're at their highest point, right?
Yeah.
It's literally in the name. It's the High Republic. There should be at the height of their powers as well. On that note, we did see some differentiation in the lightsabers, including some yellow blades. We need some of that action, because I appreciate that. I like that is that kind of like balancing between the green and the blues, of not just of the color itself, but of like the philosophy of each of these subsects of Jedi and all that sort of stuff, which is pretty cool. I was reading, I didn't notice it in the trailer, I didn't go back to look yet, but I was reading something about it. One of the main characters apparently is going to have a new type of lightsaber we've never seen before.
Oh.
I guess it's been something that was maybe written in a expanded universe.
Yeah, because there are some books and comics that take place during this time, and some characters that are going to be in this from those stories, I guess, for fans of that extended like universe.
Yeah, and I don't know a ton about that stuff yet, but so apparently this one character has this lightsaber that can be converted into a light whip.
Yeah, okay. They showed that though, right?
I don't remember actually. That's what I'm saying. I didn't go back and study every detail of the trailer.
No, sorry. They didn't show that. I saw a screenshot of a comic panel with that character that you're talking about. And that's, yeah.
I was reading about it. This was like the day after the trailer was out. There was a couple of interviews that came out from like some of the, like the writers and the actors and all that sort of stuff. And they were talking about this one character had this thing. And they actually said what goes into that lightsaber being able to be used like a whip is actually they have to turn the power setting down. So it is cutting in a less intense way to be something that can manipulate in a fluid motion.
Right.
So it sounds like it's more used in an Indiana Jones style than an
that would be. I mean, that'd be cool.
Blade, which is kind of a cool concept. I mean, I suppose it may have aspects of like the lasso of truth from Wonder Woman or something like that. Maybe.
Sure.
Like a cross between that and Indy's whip.
Yeah.
But so I thought that was pretty cool to hear about. One of the other interesting notes. I know some people have really disliked this. I actually really like this. I guess everyone's up to their opinion. I think at the end of the day, if the show's good, maybe it's because of this, maybe it's not. But you know, who cares about the principle of it if the result is good? But they were talking about, I think, was it Leslie Headland, who's the showrunner, I think, was talking about how one of the writers in the writer's room has zero background in Star Wars, like is not a Star Wars fan and all that sort of stuff.
That's pretty cool.
Yes, and so like the whole point,
like so you could pitch an idea and the others can be like, how could we ground this in our universe?
Yes, well the whole thing was there was like supposed to be like a back and forth where like they would pitch stuff, because I don't remember which writer it is. They would pitch stuff and the rest of them would be like, okay, we can't do that because X, or we can do that, you know, and here's how, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. And vice versa, where they could write stories that are, you know, deferential to the lore in Star Wars. And the person who has no background could say, yeah, I totally understand why you want to do that. Or, guys, I think you're a little too in love with everything Star Wars. Maybe we need to break free of that a little. You know what I mean? Like that sort of thing, you know?
So, that could be a really clever way of fleshing out this prequel universe.
Yeah.
Like to get a new audience.
Whether this show ends up being great or not, it feels like there was at least a strategic attempt to do something different, which you need to do when you're tackling a different time period, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Very cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that. That's June or July?
I believe it's June.
June 4th.
Yeah.
Cool. Exciting. Well, more on that as it gets
more
closer.
On the story as it develops.
Yeah, exactly.
Get your newscaster voice on.
Moving on to probably the longest trailer that we watched. That would be Bad Boys Ride or Die. I don't have the greatest feelings towards Will Smith at the moment, based on recent actions in history, but I love the Bad Boys movies, and I'm so excited to watch another one. I don't care. Like, I know it's not like we're not going in there for like cinematic mastery. We're going in there for fun.
If you are watching this movie and your hand is not in a bucket of popcorn, you're doing it wrong.
Right. It's it is a popcorn movie for sure. Man, I have so much fun watching. I think seeing Bad Boys 2 is like one of my fondest like movie watching experiences that I can like recall. Like a movie can be like this. That was like the takeaway from watching Bad Boys 2 at a younger age. Like I was just like, this is ridiculous. And I loved where it went. I loved how crazy and over the top it was. I loved how fun it was. And it's just like it's kind of like it's got its foot in the old and like the action movies of old, and also like some of the sensibilities of a modern action movie, and it ties those things together nicely. And I've always enjoyed them.
It's funny the fact that they should be like back to making these again when like the third one was like 15 or whatever years after the second one.
Yeah.
And it made it seem like that was going to be the last one, considering Martin Lawrence's character the whole time is trying desperately to get out of the business.
He's doing his best Danny Glover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably more than Danny Glover, honestly.
Yeah. More whiny than Danny Glover.
Well, certainly that. But Yeah. Also, I didn't even first of all before like 2 months ago, I didn't even know they were making this movie.
Same.
Or at least I had forgotten if I did know after watching the last one. Does it look like the whole team of the youngsters is back?
That was my guess. Okay. I know at least Reggie was, who is responsible for one of the best scenes of Bad Boys 2.
Well, at least party to one of the best scenes anyway. No, but I mean,
he's the butt of the joke in one of the best scenes of Bad Boys 2.
I thought I noticed. Was it Vanessa Hudgens who was in the last one and she was in this one? Wasn't she in that trailer?
I don't remember.
Towards the end of it, I want to say.
Let me be honest with you, I don't remember any of the last one.
Oh, really? Okay.
I remember having fun watching it, and then it was out of my mind.
I remember. Well, we definitely did it for the show. I remember being frustrated that the third one was called Bad Boys for Life.
Right.
So I wanted there to be a 4 in that title. They squandered that opportunity. They've now made a 4th one, and it's like, well, you could have named the last one anything.
Bad Boys 5, and you're like, no, it's the 4th one. Well, actually, they could have done Forever.
They could have done Forever. Although, I think some people would have had a concern of, going from For Life to Forever, but whatever. Just all 4 titles from now on.
Well, Fast and Furious decided to just make another movie called Fast and Furious at one point in the middle.
Well, because there was the Fast and the Furious, and then there was Fast and Furious. Subtle differences, I know. But
and then Fast 9 Furious.
Fast 9 Furious.
Talk about squandered opportunities.
Yes.
They go back in time and they just roll over Hitler in a challenge. I'd watch that. I would go to the movies for that.
But
I hope Taika Waititi's directing.
Oh, jeez. I don't know if that would work. But although who knows? There might be some relationship between him and Vin Diesel. I mean, Groot was momentarily in Love and Thunder.
Yes.
Taika was definitely a part of the Endgame process.
Sure.
Anyway. I don't know. This movie, I'm sure it'll be incredibly dumb and kind of fun. I'm a little sad that Joey Pants looked and sounded terrible. I mean, I know he's playing a dead guy, and I was like, well, first of all, in the beginning of the trailer, I was like, wow, they're doing him dirty. They gave him like 3 scenes in the last movie. They killed him off, and now they're making him the bad guy. He's the secret bad guy. Oh no, they're just framing him. Oh, maybe he's back from the dead. Who knows?
I was gonna say, I hope he's hiding out though.
I wondered about that too, but he got shot in the throat. Like, that doesn't tend to be something you survive. I mean,
I don't remember. Oh, right, they killed him in the last one. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
I forgot about that. Okay, all right, yeah, bastards.
But and then we get the classic. The good guys get framed and they're going to be bad now, or they're not. They're going to be bad, but they're going to be treated like they're bad.
They're going to be bad boys
for life. I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, it'll be silly. I'm looking forward to it. That's enough. We've given Bad Boys Ride or Die enough attention.
Sign off for that.
Moving on to House of the Dragon, Green and Black. Yes. Those are your 2 trailers. So I'm gonna go through my experience with this first. So Al shared with me that these trailers were available today, right? That's when they were available.
A few days ago.
Whatever. Okay, so he told me today. That's fine. And I watched both of them, and I'm like, fine. This is all fine. I don't remember. I just don't remember. I don't remember anything about the previous season.
It's been a couple years now.
I don't have even remotely the same level of interest as I had in Game of Thrones.
No, I didn't like the first season as much as I liked the height of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it. I'll be fine with it. I don't believe that I will be itching to watch it Sunday nights.
I'll probably make an effort because thankfully it's on not during football season, so I have the time.
Yeah. I'll probably watch it. It seems like it might end up being a Monday night thing for me. We'll see. That being said, I was like, I don't have any. I'm not rooting for anybody.
Yeah.
And that's boring to me.
Well, I wonder if, the whole point. Well, I would suspect the whole point of doing the trailers that way, setting up this whole thing is we're now in all out war. Everyone's got to pick a side. They kept saying that during the trailer. if they're going to do one of those things where episode by episode, like, to try to pull you to one side or the other. But I think the whole point of this conflict is that both sides have heroes and villains.
Sure.
And there's even that line, I think it was the Reese Ifans character who said,
well, let's pause on that for 1 second. You think I know anybody's name? You're out of your mind.
Well, that was the name of the actor. I said the Reese Ifans character.
Oh, okay. Now I know who you're talking about.
Because I don't remember his name
Yeah.
in the show, but I know the name of the actor.
Sure.
I think it was him who said something along the lines of, at a certain point, this conflict, people are going to forget what even started it. And that is the whole point of this story, is that they're all going to get caught up in this escalation in such a way that whether or not you thought one side or the other had the justification to do what they're doing, they're going to betray that 10 times over. And, it'll be, okay, you're rooting for this side, or maybe you're rooting for that side. It's the thing that I thought was one of the things that made Succession so great, was it was these group of terrible people in these petty squabbles for power inside of this company.
Mm-hmm.
And you ended up hating all of them because they're all detestable. But the writing and the performances were so good that on any given episode, you might be rooting for one person, and then
you
the
can root
next
for somebody in the
episode
moment,
rooting for the next person.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I suspect that's what this show will be going for. Now, whether they execute that at that level or not, and I suspect they won't, but that format can work. It's tricky, but it can work, and Succession is the truest example of that, in my opinion.
There's something weird to me about. I want to say it's a prequel issue, but I didn't really feel this way about Star Wars, so I don't really know. But anyway, the fact that you know what it's leading into, and then that whole thing has this wave of good, amazing, squandered, and I'm like, I don't, I don't care. I ultimately don't care, because I think, and I'm actually, you know what it is? I think I'm just bitter about I'm feeling like the way that it checked out by the end, feeling like it was just so off the rails, and they had I feel like I could have and I don't say, I know you say as as someone who's watching, you might be like, oh, I could have done that better, and you can't, because realistically you're not a writer, but I've got 6 ideas in my head that are better than what they did, and would have been surprising and exciting, and they didn't, and I feel like it should not have gotten to where it got, and I think I'm holding that over this show, which is not fair to the people making the show, but it is the reality of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to hold that stuff specifically against this show, because it is a totally different project with a lot of different people. I mean, there are a handful of people who are involved who are the same people, but the people who were probably most guilty for the failings of Game of Thrones are no longer associated with this show. So I'm trying not to hold the child guilty for the sins of the father.
That's fair, but there's also the concept of it's such a business show. I feel like there's not a lot of heart behind creating this, because I feel like it's very much driven by and trying to ride the coattails of the success, even though they know full well that it went off the rails. It didn't hurt them in the viewer count at all. But it's not, I feel like it's not being made. I mean, it's in this business, it's hard to ever say that that's true. But I feel like it's not being made for the right reasons.
I don't know. I mean, what you're saying isn't unfair, but it is counterweighted by the fact that this is something that George R. R. Martin is so passionate about. So his heart matched with their business acumen. That's how a project like this gets made, right? I mean,
yeah, you
have the heart of J.R.R. Tolkien and Peter Jackson matched with the box office blast of The Lord of the Rings.
Sure,
it's one of the most financially successful series of movies ever made, but it was made with heart. But that heart doesn't get to beat without the dollars pumped into it, because they know it's a savvy investment, right? Yeah. The best projects are the marrying of those two things, and there's going to be struggle, and the heart will win on some things and the dollar will win on others. But
yeah,
It's not a totally cynical project, is in my opinion.
I feel like I don't know if this is true because I'm grass is greener type thing, but I feel like I would be more on board if we were telling a story after the fact than before it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's got to finish writing the main story to have a story after the fact, right? Although, to be fair, they did greenlight a script for a show based on Arya after the events of the book.
Yeah, but like that's not what I'm talking about. Like that, like I think be finished with the characters and move further out in the future. Realize that you have people that can write well and create this struggle, like these like interesting dynamics between houses and stuff like that, but we don't know where it's going. I think that would catch my interest more than this, which will ultimately lead to Game of Thrones, which will ultimately lead to my disappointment.
Yeah, I will say though, as a testament to this project specifically, it takes place long enough in the past that it doesn't end with the beginning of Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't.
That's fair.
It doesn't end with like Robert's Rebellion. It's going to end like whatever. I forget exactly how long this was. This like 200 years before, or something like that, 100 years before. So like, there is no overlap of characters. It's not even like the father of a character. You know what I mean? It's like the grandfather or great grandfather of characters that we know. Yeah. So like, there is enough proximity to make it recognizable for us, but enough distance to keep us from feeling like it's cheaply imitating it, you know?
Yeah. Is there enough distance that the surprise of the return of dragons is that like mind-blowing?
Well, I do think the fact that there's going to be two different factions opposing each other, both with dragons, will be a new permutation of these stories, right?
Oh no, sorry. I'm more talking about a fault of Game of Thrones. Of like, I feel like dragons are so far removed that they almost seem mythical or legendary, and then when they come back within Game of Thrones, it's like people are like holy shit, like it's a dragon. I thought they were all gone, like that type of thing. Mm-hmm. But it's like, I feel like it would be less surprising because of the timeline proximity of that, like how many dragons there are just 100 years ago.
Well, no, I mean, like that's the whole thing was that most of the people alive during the course of that show didn't see a dragon ever, right?
I don't know, because 100 years isn't that long.
Well, I don't remember now what the exact timeline was. If it's 100 years, if it's 200 years, but it's like, you know, like the whole thing was that only like the oldest characters, the ones who were like, you know, 80 years old or 100 years old or whatever, like actually remembered them on Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
It was one of those things where it's like, oh, growing up, my grandfather told me about dragons.
Yeah.
Because my grandfather remembered them, but I don't, you know?
Yeah, that works. There's a release date? Do you know when does this come out?
There definitely must have probably been a release date on that.
I didn't clock it even remotely.
Well, I just when the first one ended, I was trying to find the other one, you know, and then when the other one ended, I was trying to run down here to start recording because I was late.
We've talked about this briefly in the past, but like, I do not need a teaser for a trailer. Some random character yelling some line, House of the Dragon trailer starting in 3.
Yeah.
2. Stop it.
I did think that was a bit odd. I've never fully understood that. I think
it takes away from the experience because they're doing it with movies too. The thing that gets me amped up for a movie trailer is the green banner.
When you're
like the preview, whatever, blah, 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 blah.
It actually probably works as like a promoted ad on like Facebook or Twitter. But if you're seeking it out, you don't need it. Like if I searched it on YouTube, so I don't need it as part of that.
I would imagine that the purpose of it is to get people to unmute in time for the trailer itself.
Yeah, which is why I'm saying, like, if it was something that jumped in as an interstitial from something else I was doing versus I have decided to search on YouTube that I would like to watch this trailer.
But
you don't need to tell me that I'm about to watch this trailer.
Yes, exactly.
In that
and
form.
Knowing what I know about content creation and asset distribution, put a different thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All you have to do is just chop off that first 5 seconds or whatever.
Yep. It's dumb. Anyway, House of the Dragon. More on that when we see it.
Hang on a second. I'm trying to look. Okay, so the first episode of the new season is June 16th. That was what I was looking
at. Okay, cool. So we'll be watching House of the Dragon and Acolyte around the same time. Lots to talk about.
Yeah, they'll certainly overlap. Yeah.
Start thinking of a post-credit segment name for Acolyte. Dragon doesn't deserve it, but Acolyte.
Well, let's let the episodes decide, man. The episodes kick ass.
They can decide for how we treat it going forward, but up front, they get beginning of show. I'm not sour about it. That's enough for House of the Dragon. Moving on to, I was going to say the one I'm most excited about. Now, Acolyte is probably what I'm most excited about. Second, but a close second, maybe tied neck and neck for what I'm most excited about the trailers that we watched. Beetlejuice. We've never really spoken about Beetlejuice, I don't think.
No, we've talked about it because I've detailed the one and only time I've watched the whole movie.
Oh, wait, I don't remember this.
Well, it's important because it's hilarious. Let's call this like a corollary to the Quiet Place.
Okay.
Because the only time I've watched this movie start to finish, I watched it on mute. Like, I've seen scenes from the movie a bunch of times. I've watched one time start to finish, and it was on mute. It was at a Halloween party.
What an absolute travesty. Like, A Quiet Place, I will say, you can get 90% of it without the subtitles. It's there.
Yeah, no, I understood the gist of what was going on.
Yeah, it's fine. Beetlejuice, I would say, like
yeah, no, I don't understand.
90% of the appeal is Keaton's delivery. Like,
well, not only that, I mean, just fucking, like, it made me feel, not having the sound made me feel even more like I was on acid, because like, what the fuck is going on?
That's fair.
What the fuck is going on?
I don't remember the first time that I watched it, but I do remember, I believe it was one of the movies that I rented from a Select Video that was the video store next to the pizzeria. And well after it had been released, right? Like, and as when I was a little bit older, and man, I loved it. Like, I loved it. I thought it was so good. And it's like one of those things where, like, I like vaguely remember my mom just being like, about it. But I was a kid and I thought it was hysterical and I thought it was so funny. And I watched it like over and over. And then any opportunity that I had when it came on, I watched it. Granted, like, at this point, I got into movies at a super early age. So, like, Batman was my first movie. So, like, Michael Keaton was already important to me. And, like, seeing him in this role was ridiculous. And
I don't know why, but you phrasing it as I had seen Batman and thus Michael Keaton was important to me is a funny thought. Like, I totally get it, but it's just a funny thought.
There are two fictional characters that are very important to me. One is Batman, one is Michael Keaton.
Wait, so you're saying that Michael Keaton isn't real?
But anyway, I also, here's how Beetlejuice came. It's like piecing together in real time. We went to Jekyll and Hyde for dinner one night. You ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, so it's kind of like dinner, and it's like a themed dinner place with, like, there's like a little bit of interactivity with a kind of experience that's going on. It's not like a show, but you go to this place and there's like Lurch type character is going to greet you at the door and take your name. Mm-hmm. Then you are seated, and like all of the waiters and waitresses are like clearly aspiring actors, and they're doing silly things. They're being funny. They're doing performances like with your taking of your order, delivering your food, like coming by and talking to you. It's really fun, but it's all in that like kind of like old school horror like theme where it's like it's not quite scary, it's funny, it's campy. It's like campy horror. That's what the whole thing is. And there's props and there's things and there's like some of it might be things that like resemble things from movies. And I saw a shrunken head doll.
Okay.
And I didn't know what it was. And I asked what it was. And my parents explained it to me. And then they were like, it actually looks just like the one from the movie, from Beetlejuice. And I was like, I don't remember ever seeing that in Beetlejuice because I used to watch the cartoon. And they were like,
I
"Oh
forgot
no,
that there was a cartoon.
yeah." They were like, "No, we mean Beetlejuice. Like, we're talking about the movie. In the movie, there's a character waiting to be called, and he has a shrunken head." And I was like, I was so fascinated by that, and we ended up like renting the movie and watching, it, and I loved it. That's how all of that happened. And then like putting together that this character was also Batman was very exciting to me. But it's like Michael Keaton is off the rails, like coke off the rails. Like it's like I don't know what he's on, but
Coke.
it's yeah.
I don't know. I don't
it's
know if he
just
was.
such
I don't
a
know if he was
fun.
one of those cokehead actors.
It's just such a fun character and like such a fun delivery, and I feel like each time I watch it, I just laugh. Like it's so silly. There's I don't know. Shai Hulud's in the movie. We'll explain. If you saw.
No, I've seen the word. I didn't hear it, but I've seen it.
It's not really that's not the name, but that's. I mean, it's clearly that. It's Tremors and that. It's all the same thing. But it was I don't know. It was so fun, and when they watched the trailer, the music for the trailer, the cool like Deo intro to the trailer, very exciting for the sequel.
Well, it's perfect because of this like there's been all these trailers in the last like 10 years or whatever that use like the very like slowed down like cover of a song, and they did that too, but it's their own song from the last movie. It's not just a random like
exactly. That honestly makes it a little bit better because that shtick is getting old.
Oh yeah, it's very tongue in cheek to do that, but use their own song. Like I like that.
That was silly. And then like seeing all the old things, the bridge, the town, the mock version of the town, all of it was really exciting. Seeing Winona Ryder in costume to look exactly like she did in the first movie. Seeing Moira Rose reprise her role as
Moira Rose.
Winona Ryder's mother. Really great. But then when they show like the mock town breaking apart and Beetlejuice coming out, and then he says that's where the line from the opening of the show came. He says the juice is loose. Seeing the shock and fear on Winona Ryder's face, I was like, but if you just say his name 3 times, he goes back. Why are we so afraid right now? Or do we know we need him? And that's why we're so afraid.
These are all things that would be much more important if I had actually seen the whole movie. No. Now, to be fair, I know about the 3 things. Well, I know about saying his name 3 times summons him. I didn't realize that that's what banished him as well.
Yeah.
I still don't really actually know what the first movie is about. I mean, I know there's people who die and they're waiting to go to the afterlife or something or the other, and there's a haunted house. And
so Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis are the main characters. They die. They die at the bridge. That's why the bridge is important. They go back to their house. They are just living their life. Things are getting weird. They see this book about the handbook for the dead. They're not quite sure what the deal is, and then somebody buys their house, and they start living in their house, and they can't see them, and they don't know what's going on. They realize that they're starting to understand that they're dead. They go to cross over. They meet with somebody. They don't decide. They like kind of go back and forth, and they're like, okay, like we want to stay in our house. How can we do that? And you could haunt them and try to get them to leave. So then they try to do scary things to get them to leave, but it's not working because they're just not, I guess they're not I don't remember what the reason is. Maybe it's that they're not scary enough or being effective enough in scaring them that they just don't even notice them. So they ultimately call Beetlejuice to help them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when it goes off the rails.
Got it. But then all they have to do is say the name again? It goes away.
They have to say it 3 times to get him to go away. They don't know that up front.
Mm.
But when they do realize it, he does all sorts of things to thwart them from saying it.
Sure.
2 more times, but ultimately, yeah, it happens. Anyway, that's Beetlejuice, and
don't say the 3rd time.
I'm excited. Other news and nuggets you have on here. On Beetlejuice for 1 more second. I think we should probably do the first one before the second one is released, so that we can have that under our belts, and so that you could actually watch it with volume.
Yeah, one of these years I should actually watch the movie, I suppose.
Yeah, and then around the Halloween season, we'll do the sequel.
That makes sense.
Potential Bond casting.
Yeah, so this was a story from last week. This was going to be featured when this episode was supposed to be recorded last week. I don't know that there's been any update on this story or any advancement of this plot, so to speak, but this was on The Independent. Aaron Taylor Johnson responds to claims he'll replace Daniel Craig as James Bond. It says the subheading of this says actor has appeared to distance himself from rumors. The Tenet actor made such an odd way to refer to him, the Tenet actor. I mean, he is in that movie, but that's I don't think not the first thing.
Yeah, it took me until just now to realize. Wait, who was he in Tenet? And then I remembered.
He's definitely in it. He has a speaking role. It's just it's odd to see him. He does. Like that's
wouldn't have been my first choice.
Wouldn't have been my first 5 choices, probably.
Yeah.
Especially considering he's doing promotion for like the first movie that he's really truly like the lead in.
Well, kick-ass.
Is he the lead in that? Honestly, I wasn't sure. I think of that as an ensemble movie. Though.
I guess it's borderline. I guess, but I don't know. He is kick-ass.
Okay.
So
okay, no, that's fair.
I think he's the lead.
That's fair.
Anyway.
He made headlines on Tuesday, March 19th, when it was reported that franchise producers were awaiting his response after, quote, making a formal offer for him to replace Daniel Craig as 007. Aaron Taylor Johnson, 33, was first rumored for the role in January of 2023 after it was reported that producer Barbara Broccoli had been left impressed by a screen test with the actor, whose credits include Kick-Ass, Bullet Train, and Nowhere Boy. Never heard of that. Now, 7 months after awkwardly swerving questions about the rumors, he's once again attempted to pour water on the suggestion he'll play the British spy in an interview conducted before the alleged offer was made. In a new interview with Rolling Stone UK, Taylor Johnson, who is promoting Sony's Spider-Man spin-off Kraven the Hunter, said, I can only really talk about the things I'm going to show and tell. So, The Full Guy, Nosferatu, Kraven the Hunter, I don't feel like I need to have a future drawn out for me. I feel like whatever's drawn out for me, I can fucking do better. The outlet noted that he delivered the answer with, quote, a wry smile. Elsewhere in the interview, he continued to pour water on the idea he might be bombed by saying he doesn't necessarily want to do one action movie after another to be his brand. These comments echo quotes he made in August 2015 when, after being asked if he was excited to consider playing Bond, he responded, I just focus on the things I can have in my hands right now. What's in front of me right now? According to The Sun, productions are hoping to start filming the 26th Bond film later this year, and the 33-year-old Taylor Johnson is producer's choice for the role. A source told the outlet, quote, Bond is Aaron's job should he wish to accept it. The formal offer is on the table, and they are awaiting to hear back.
Okay. Cool. It's kind of interesting. Like I don't know what it's like to be an actor. I feel like as a fan of that type of movies, I feel like getting that opportunity would be it would be very exciting. Although I'm sure he knows enough about being potentially tied to a franchise for too long where it maybe is damaging to what you really want to do in your career. So I would respect the fact that he didn't want to do it.
That being said, though, I mean, it sounds like the ball's in his court. He's got a fair amount of leverage. So,
yeah,
you can kind of have your cake and eat it too in that situation. He's young enough where he could say, I will do 3 movies.
Yeah.
I will do them across the next 10 years. I require at least 18 months off or 24 months off between end of filming of one to the start of the filming of the next.
Mm-hmm.
I have unlimited access to do whatever projects I want to do in those time. You know what I mean? Like, all of those sorts of things, right? Like
you fund passion projects in between?
Yes. This means that at least 3 movies that I want to make, you will find me the funding for,
And let's be clear, I think it's a good choice.
Oh yeah, I think it's a good choice by them.
Great.
I think he would be wise to do it. It's not for me to say. I mean, fucking go wild. Yeah, I get to pick the directors. I get to pick the writer. You know what I mean? Like, whatever. Yeah. Like if the offer is that substantial, like, take some ownership of it,
Sure. Yeah. He knows how to he managed to double dip in the Marvel universe without getting tied into it, which is good on him.
Yeah.
Does this character die? I'll take it. Is this a Sony Marvel movie? I'll take it.
Well, that's the one that's more confusing, right? Because when Ultron was shot, like, he didn't like he wasn't a star then, you know what I mean? Like, you know, and he has
no, but I mean, yeah, I don't know what the success Kick-Ass had, but it was before that, wasn't it?
Yeah, no, I mean, Kick-Ass was a cult classic. It probably made a bit of money, and but my point is, like, he wasn't a household name at that point. Like,
sure.
That's what I'm getting at. I mean, he's my age. He's still like his notoriety is definitely higher now, but he's not Tom Cruise or Daniel Craig. Like, you know, he's not that person where, like, if I walked upstairs and said to my mom, if you walked down the road and went to your mom and said, do you know who Aaron Tyler Johnson is? They would not know who that is.
Right.
But if I asked them who Daniel Craig is, they would know who that is.
Yeah, that's fair.
You know,
that's fair. This would be the step to that level of notoriety.
Yes, this would fully and completely launch him.
Which, like, and that could be a trade-off for, like, hey, like, I want to do these types of projects. And then, like, knowing that, like, by putting your time in with this, it will grant you, like, that, like, kind of, I don't know, that, like, golden name that will allow,
absolutely.
Like, that will enforce more people to see, like, your film. Like, that could be cool.
I mean, if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it. But, like, man, like, this is such a huge opportunity, and it, you know, if they're, you know, I feel like when it comes to Bond, it's people wanting to be Bond, not them wanting you to be Bond.
Yeah.
If they're coming to you, they want you. Get the most out of it, man. Like, go, like, this sets you up.
I'm with you.
This sets your life up in whatever way you want it to. You know, it's a symbiotic relationship, or at least it should be.
More on that story as it develops. Al, WTF?
Oh, okay. So I am going to send you a link so you can follow along with the story.
Oh, gross. I did that thing. I made sure not to pour out the rest of the beer. And I have sludge again.
Oh, yeah. Well, gross. You're going to see something grosser when you click on that link.
Oh, God. What do we got here?
Tell me when you're ready.
Oh, you put it in Skype. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Uno momento, por favor.
Clear.
All right. All right. 7-Eleven just announced a drink like we've never seen before.
That's right. This is on
No.
all recipes.
No.
Subheading. We formally apologize for what we're about to say. This was published on March 27th. It's the day that we're recording this. Over the last decade, we've seen seltzer transition from a bubbly beverage beloved by a few to an all-out phenomenon. From the popularity of brands like LaCroix, Spindrift, and Waterloo to boozy spiked seltzers sweeping the nation, sparkling waters now have an ever-expanding section of the drink shelves in groceries. And now, some brands are pushing the envelope on what flavors a seltzer can be. After Pickle Seltzer, we thought we'd seen it all, but now 7-Eleven has a collaboration with Miracle Seltzer that has left us truly speechless. Behold, the world's first hot dog flavored seltzer.
If there were ever an indictment for natural flavors, it's this. Oh, no.
I knew this would gross you out. I saw this about an hour before we came down.
I'm so grossed out by this.
As am I.
The point of this is to make the sales out of curiosity and disgust.
Oh, it's a shock value.
Yeah, it'll work.
They're going to make
fine.
A limited run of these things. People will come buy them.
There'll be a little bit of a collector's item aspect to it.
Yeah,
for sure.
I tried this. I bought a hot dog and a hot dog seltzer. I'm going to have them together.
Limp Bizkit is losing their mind right now. They're suing them.
I do feel like from the
copyright infringement.
The height.
You said hot dog flavored water, not hot dog flavored sparkling water.
But I also feel like, from like the height of 7-Eleven culture, of like when this was a big part of like the zeitgeist, was probably 20 to 25 years ago, right? Like this, like. It does feel like they missed the mark on that a little bit, but I guess it is an inevitable thing.
I just think that instead of selling it, it should be thrust upon those that buy a 7-Eleven hot dog. Like if you have to take, like, you get this for free. I don't want it. It is required. You need to take this before I will ring you up for your hot dog.
Listen, no judgment, and whatever floats your boat, great. I've just never had an interest in any sort of gas station / convenience store food. It's just not for me.
Sure.
People love it, and there are many, many millions of people who eat it, and their lives are enriched in whatever way by doing so. Just
I
not for
will.
me.
I mean, hang on though. There's different levels though. 7-Eleven is not high level. Like, I guess highest level being medium at best.
I mean,
But
I
no.
have gone to like a Quick Check or
Yeah.
a similar place and had a sandwich made. It's
Yeah.
not often, but I've done that in the style of a Subway's, Quiznos, whatever. Like,
Right.
that's fine. My
Yes,
point is,
that's what. Yeah.
pre-made food sitting in a gas station.
Oh no,
Not
no,
for me.
no, thank you, no, thank you. Yeah, that's a pass for me.
So
I thought you were gonna say no judgment if you buy one of these, and be like, no, full judgment.
Oh no, I will judge you for buying
okay.
one of these. I mean, I understand, but I will judge. In collaboration with Miracle Seltzer,
I think I threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Which is somewhere between a hypey apparel brand, an art project, and a seltzer company. And I don't know what that means, and it's too douchey for me to follow that rabbit hole. 7-Eleven is introducing 4 new flavors of 7 select sparkling waters to its convenience stores. The first 3, lemon lime, green apple, and sweet orange, are child's play compared to the 4th. Inspired by 7-Eleven's best-selling Big Bite hot dog, yes, the ones on the rollers, the sparkling water is flavored like the iconic convenience store hot dog, ketchup and mustard included.
No.
Now,
Well, how is it worse? How is it worse?
Oh, this next paragraph will show you how.
God, what if they had different variations of it that were like ketchup, mustard, relish everything?
Sauerkraut.
Yeah. Oh.
Chili cheese dog. No, this paragraph is going to gross you out even more, actually. Now, we've had hot dogs served a million ways, driven a car shaped like a hot dog, and even drank through a hot dog straw. But this is taking the hot dog to places it's never been before, the beverage aisle. Technically, that's not true, since a Texas-based brewery made seltzer with leftover hot dog water back in 2022.
What are you doing?
There's a link to that story, and I don't even know if I'm brave enough to click it. But it's the first time a non-alcoholic hot dog flavored drink is coming to the market. According to a press release.
Hang on, I'm gonna have to call it right now. I can't think about this anymore. I do feel like I'm gonna throw up.
This is actually.
I'm serious. It's. I'm having a visceral reaction to it.
So there's no more gross stuff. There's only another paragraph and a half. Let me finish.
All right, good.
Gone. This is the press release. Gone are the days of alternating bites of a hot dog with sips of a beverage, because now those on the go can swap.
You said it didn't get worse
for bubbles. We'll let that sentence sink in for a moment. Okay, this one is really truly just business.
Okay.
We're told that more details on the shocking flavor's availability will be revealed on April 1st, which leads us cynics to believe that it may be an April Fool's ruse. Frankly speaking, we kind of hope...
No!
You didn't let me finish the sentence. Frankly speaking, we kind of hope it's not. Parenthetically. Sorry. But if it isn't, we're left with one question. Is this seltzer technically a sandwich?
Good. I mean, what a way to close it out.
Oh, they nailed the dismount for sure.
Well done. All right, Jesus Christ. Moving on from that,
I knew that was going to gross you out. I didn't think it would get to the point of you dry.
Yeah, I'm not feeling well.
We're gonna have to take the recording bathroom break early just so that we can splash some cold water on his face.
I don't like it at all. Let's move on to some news and nuggets.
You mean to some consumption?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. Consumption would be better. I don't want to even.
You are shook.
Yeah, it's not good. I like legit feel like I threw up in my mouth a little bit thinking about it, because I couldn't stop thinking about what it would taste like, and I've
made a point of not trying to access it in my brain.
But I don't
want that.
The thing that got me was like, I was like, what would a hot dog flavored drink like thinking about tasting it, and then for some reason,
no, you're doing the thing. I'm pointedly not thinking about that, so I don't get that.
We're here now.
Taste in my mouth.
We're here now. So I did that, and then I went, but it's carbonated, and that's when I almost threw up. Oh, God. Okay.
Just remember, you are doing this at this point. I'm done. You're doing this.
Consumption. No more hot dogs. We're an hour and a half in. I guess we could try to let's try to keep this brief.
I have one main thing to talk about.
Okay, let's start with yours, and then I will run through my list, and then we'll move on. Okay, because consumption is a touchy subject right now.
So, I watched a movie a week and a half ago. I
Same.
had never heard this movie. I never heard of this movie at all.
Okay.
Just scrolling through Amazon. It was Friday night. My dad wanted to watch something. He's like, go look on the streaming services. It was just me and him watching. Like my mom was kind of in and out, so she was only half paying attention. I just could not find anything that interested both of us at the same time. I stumbled on something I want to say was on Amazon. Yeah, no, it was definitely on Amazon. From 2017. Now, on Amazon, the movie is called Killing Gunther. If you look it up on IMDb, it's called Why We're Killing Gunther. I had never heard of this movie. Not even 1%. Not remotely.
I have heard that title before.
Do you know what this movie is in any way, shape, or form?
I don't. I'm going to look it up right now.
So it's Taran Killam, who I did not recall being from SNL. He did look vaguely familiar to me. I realized that I did know him from some things that I did not associate. I knew the name and I knew the face. At no point in my life had I ever connected those two things.
Yeah.
It had a bunch of other people I recognized. It had Bobby Moynihan. It had Hannah Simone from New Girl. It had Alison Tolman, which was that was probably, I guess, at the height of her popularity, which was interesting that she should be in this. There might have been one or two other familiar faces. Oh yeah, the Aaron Yu. I remember him from movies like 15 years ago. A couple other people that were vaguely familiar. I was like, oh yeah, I know that person. It's a movie about a group of assassins who band together to take out the most famous and successful assassin in the world.
Okay.
Who, spoiler alert, because it's on the poster and it was in the promotional material, but was not revealed until the final 15 or so minutes of the movie. Gunther is played by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Amazing.
You don't see him until the end of the movie.
He's in the trailer, which is silly.
Yeah, I didn't see the trailer. I just watched the movie. Also, Kobe Smulders, who's married to Taran Killam. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Until, looking up in this or whatever.
Yep.
This is a funny movie. It's dumb. It's really dumb.
Why We're Killing Gunther. I'm adding this to my list. This does look like it's right up my alley.
It's entertaining for sure. It's so dumb. But it is definitely an entertaining movie. The whole thing, all of them have their own special skill set that they, in this whole thing. It's in the style of a mockumentary. Yeah. Where it's, it's very What We Do in the Shadows, where like they hired a documentary crew to record and prove that they've killed Gunther. The whole thing is, every time they think they have a lead on where he is, or they think they have a trap planned for him, he just undresses everything that they're doing. It's fucking ridiculous. Some of the deaths are just so over the top. Some of the fight and action scenes, it's like slapstick, over the top. It is a fun watch.
When did this come out?
2017.
2017. Okay. Wow. Okay, I'll check this out. This does sound very entertaining. Like right up my alley.
It was on. It was
weird
on,
obsession with Schwarzenegger aside. I'm into this.
Sure, it was on Amazon Freevee, so like there was a couple of commercials throughout or whatever. But
got it.
Not the end of the world. I mean, you could probably download it on Plex or whatever. But it was written and directed by Taran Killam. He's the lead.
Okay,
but it's an ensemble movie.
Yeah,
he's definitely the lead in that.
I like that.
It was. I enjoyed my time, considering I had when I see a movie like this, it's like I've never heard of this. It's got a bunch of like C-list actors and actresses, even though I may like some. I mean, I like Hannah Simone. I liked her in New Girl. Bobby Moynihan is entertaining, but like they're not headline most projects. I tend to have really low expectations for these things, and I was very pleasantly surprised by this.
Love it. That's perfect. I'm excited to watch it. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. I'm gonna burn through these as quickly as I can. The first thing up for consumption is a thing that was actually consumed today, which was like a mock hamburger helper that I threw together for dinner, which came together.
Would you like make one from scratch, like your own?
Yeah. I got some nice quality ground beef, sautéed some onions and garlic, and what'd you say?
Trader Joe's?
No, not after last time.
Not quality.
No. From the grass-fed ground beef from the case at Whole Foods, like better meat.
Okay.
Ground beef, sauteed that with some onions and garlic. Push that aside.
Did you chop them properly?
Blanched. I did. I do chop properly, and maybe not by your standards for certain things, but I definitely I have my hours with
No,
chopping.
just pursuant to our conversation in this episode.
Yeah, no, they're chopped well. I threw together some. I blanched and then sautéed some dandelion greens. Threw those in.
Dandelion greens.
Yep, they're
certainly
very
never cooked with
flavorful.
those.
I slightly undercooked some chickpea rigatoni in the water that I used to blanch the dandelion greens, so it also kind of took on some of that flavor, and then mixed that all in together in a casserole pan. And I made my own kind of cheese sauce out of some raw cheddar and Munster.
Mm.
Started off with I did a little butter and chickpea flour to make a base, added that in, poured a little milk, and then used some of the pasta water.
A little bechamel type of...
Yeah, and then poured that over the whole thing. We have this millet and flaxseed bread. We try to not limit our gluten throughout the week. And we have this bread that we like, and we just buy a ton of it and keep it in the freezer and then just take out slices at a time to use.
Speaking of, sorry, slight interjection, but I forgot to mention this to you the other day. I know you've said you've messed around with a few different ones, but just keep in mind, whatever that 24-hour dough that you've used for pizza before.
Oh, yeah.
My mom is now interested 3 years after I told her about
it. Okay, yeah, I'll send it to her.
Well, I know we're going to see you Sunday, so...
Yeah, good call. I'll make sure that I could pull it up. So we take that. I keep the butts of those breads as we go through them in one bag. Mm-hmm. So as we near the end of the bag and we start a new bag of bread, I'll just put the butts in the empty bag. So start collecting them because I'll use them for making meatballs or meatloaf, or in this case,
breadcrumbs or croutons or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. So I toasted 6 or 7 pieces of those butts, put it in the food processor with some previously fresh rosemary. I've had it for a while. It was still on the sprig, but it was definitely dried out.
The herb formerly known as
exactly. I put some of that in, some salt and pepper, ground that up, threw it on top of this casserole pan, and then drizzled it with some nice Spanish olive oil and broiled it for a couple minutes.
Olive oil. Nice.
Yeah, and it crisped up really good. And man, what a treat!
That sounds like fun.
Now, listen, this took 50 minutes.
Okay.
Hamburger Helper, I'm pretty sure takes half an hour.
Does it?
Go the 20 minutes. Go the extra 20 minutes.
Honest to God, I don't know if I've ever...
Maybe it's less. Maybe it's less time. I don't know. It's not worth it.
I don't know if I've ever had Hamburger Helper. If we did, it was when I was young.
But anyway, this came out. This was good. This was a delight. Something that I will be... I'll definitely be making again.
A delight or a delight?
A delight. A delight. For sure. Next up, things I'm actually watching. So Suits, we're back into Suits. We took a minor hiatus during the Oscar season so that we can catch up on movies. But we are fully back into it. Things are off the rails as usual. I mean, Suits has a 90-second turnaround time from resolution to chaos. Wow. It's insane. We figured it out and then just complete dire situation 90 seconds later. It's amazing how they do it. They pull it off. How I don't know how you set yourself apart from a soap opera, but you manage to do it. But you're doing the thing. It's so dramatic.
I think the main difference is passage of time because
it's a week.
Sometimes there's a month. No, I mean there's a month of episodes of soap opera that cover an hour of real time on the show.
That's fair. That's probably why it feels a little bit better. Next up, which I'm going to encourage you to watch if you have any affinity for the original series, but X-Men 97.
I've been hearing everyone talk about this.
Really cool.
It's a new show, right?
It is a new show. It's made with the same art style.
Yes.
And that's what confused me. I can tell,
when I saw the pictures, I was like, that certainly looks like the show from my childhood. But the way they kept saying X-Men 97 on Disney Plus, I was like, so they must be doing a new show but with that sensibility.
Yeah, because the original is there.
Yeah, I thought so.
So it's kind of a requel, though, because it's you don't have to see any of the original stuff. I don't think it was as serialized as this will likely be. I'm not sure because I haven't seen too much of it. Okay. But it definitely seems like it's taking place years later, from the original series of X-Men cartoons.
So it is supposed to be a continuation.
I think so. From what I can tell, that would be. I mean, it's been so long since I've seen the original that I don't know, if it had a through line story that ended a certain way. I don't remember.
Okay.
But from what I do remember of the first one, this comes after that.
I definitely watched a good amount of those episodes. I don't recall more than
Honestly,
like an odd snippet here and
all
there.
you need to remember is doom, 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 which they brought back in full force, and it's wonderful. It's so good. It's incredible. Anyway, I've been enjoying that. I watched a couple episodes and had a lot of fun with it. Definitely a passive watch for me, but fun and nostalgic.
Well, that's probably a good thing to throw on with like Ellie around or whatever, right? Like,
yeah,
he could probably.
Me and Ian were watching it in the morning, which is fun. I in my continuation through the MCU, the Infinity Saga. I just finished.
You're going through that whole thing.
Finished Winter Soldier, which is insane to me. How that movie went from me being like it's fine to it's my favorite.
That's that has been for sure the most shocked I've ever been at how disparate our opinions on a movie was.
You know what I think it is? I think at that point in my life, for whatever reason, you
said you were cranky when you saw it.
Yeah, I was. I think I was cranky when I saw it, but I was also resistant to Chris Evans.
Well, I remember that being something more or less consistent from that time. But I remember thinking, I was like, but how specifically in that movie could you be resistant to?
Yeah,
because he's.
But I've come around on him and full circle have come around on that movie where it's definitely up, like it's high ranking. It's so good.
That is probably my favorite. That was really the first one in the whole series that to me really felt like this is a movie, right? Like this is like not just a superhero movie. Like this is an actual movie.
It's funny in hindsight and when you watch that saga, like what you feel and remember of the Infinity Saga was born and dies with the Russo brothers.
Yeah.
And this is the intro.
Yeah, I mean, for as important obviously as what's his name is as like stewarding the big picture.
Favreau?
No.
Or Tony Stark?
The producer. What the hell's his name?
What is happening?
Yeah, neither of us, both of
that
us.
we've talked about a million times.
I can see his face, but I can't.
Is Kevin Feige?
Feige, that's it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for as important as all credit.
Sure.
But without having.
Their direction is what grounded the timeline, like the whole series.
It's what allows it all to coalesce into something that functions and works. It gives them a house style. And for as much as like in the aping of their house style by like, I don't want to say lesser creators, but like creators who aren't them has been some of the downfall of them in recent years.
Sure.
Without them to help shepherd that into being a more mature product, this never takes off in this way. That movie legitimized in a lot of ways this whole experiment in a way that like passed the baton from the Avengers into the next wave of all these movies, building the momentum to get to Infinity War / Endgame.
Yeah, I watched that and I was like, I watched it in 3 sittings, and at the end of each sitting, I was like,
fuck, damn, I can't wait to get back and watch it more.
Yeah, like this is so good. Anyway, that was a treat, and I kicked off Guardians of the Galaxy, which is what follows that, and it's been fun. If you haven't gotten a chance to see them,
those two going back to back is pretty.
It's weird,
incredible.
It's weird but good. If you haven't gotten a chance to look at it, they in between some of those earlier movies, like. I think it's actually been everyone up to Winter Soldier. There wasn't one between Winter Soldier and Guardians of the Galaxy, but there's these Marvel one-shots where they focus on one character for like anywhere from like 3 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, I remember that those existed. I don't know if I've ever seen a single one.
They're good. They're really entertaining.
I mean, I've seen people talk about them enough that like obviously they left some sort of impact on the small subsection of people who watched them, but I just never. I wasn't like aware of them when they were going on. It was more something in retrospect, like down the line when they had been doing them for a while, where I was like, "What is this one shot thing that people keep talking about?"
Yeah, so there's 2. If you're not going to watch all of them, there's 2 that I recommend. One is a funny thing happened on the way to Thor's hammer, which is and it follows Coleman.
Okay,
Coulson. And then the other one is All Hail the King, which follows Trevor in prison post Iron Man 3.
I've heard of that.
It's very good. Just very, very fun. Anyway, there wasn't one between the last 2. I don't know if they come back as the timeline continues on, but I'll see as I get there. Very much enjoying that. I also got back into The Flash. I never picked up the final season.
Oh,
I
yeah,
had
I
started
forgot
it.
about that. I forgot you
Life
didn't finish
happened.
that.
I've got like the second half of it left. Got back into it. Pretty excited to be back with the Flash. Sad that I'm only going to be with it for a short period of time before it's over. But that's been enjoyable. Next up, and I'm going to throw this out there. I'm going to call it now. Maybe if you're interested, we do this next week. I'm not sure. Have you seen War Games?
Is that old? Was it Matthew Broderick?
Yes.
No.
Okay. War Games has been on my list of movies to watch for a very, very long time.
I'm just aware of references to it.
I had a movie night with myself last week.
Oh, nice.
And War Games was on the docket. And boy, did it deliver. Al, you're in for a treat.
Really?
Yeah. Holds up as someone who hasn't seen it before.
Okay. I mean,
like it's got its 80s issues.
Okay.
But
I've
good.
I've definitely seen and heard references to that movie. I think it's a bit of a cult classic, I guess, because I don't think it was like a massive hit or anything at the time.
Mm-hmm. Definitely influential for like Ernest Cline, like in like Ready Player One and Armada and all that stuff.
Yeah, I also got, from what little I know about the movie, I want to say, and I don't know which one came first, but one or the other is definitely spiritually like carrying on some of the same like concepts, because when I was a kid, I read the Orson Scott Card series, like Ender's Game and all of those books, and the original book and that movie, I think, share a lot of DNA in common. I just don't know which one came first. They came out both in the 80s, so it's not important which one came first, but I think that there is a lot of like thematic overlap between.
Sure.
those.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check out Ender's Game. That's one of the ones on that list as well.
I've never seen the movie, but I read the books.
Yeah. I just had a really good time with that movie. Like it's got a certain level of cheese, but it's just so like obviously influential, and there's so many things that are of the time that they do in the movie that are just like, it really just takes you back. I loved it. I had such a fun time watching it. And knowing full well that at this point in time, movies don't do like that thing where they end on a like super negative note. The good guys win by the end of movie. From the 80s through the 90s, the good guys win. Like that's just a thing. That's
a lot of things, yeah, for sure.
So like I like knowing, like assuming that going in, I definitely like they ramped up my anticipation of what was going to happen. Like I don't know. I knew, but I didn't know. So I was excited to see like how it was going to play out, and I was like on the edge of my seat a couple of times. Like it was. I think we should do it. And if we don't do it, I think you should watch it.
It is on.
It's on Max. That's where I watched it.
So, whether we do it next week or within the next month or whatever, I'm tentatively interested.
And then final two thoughts on consumption. After our talk 2 weeks ago, I downloaded Star Wars Battlefront.
Oh, good, because that was actually one of my mini notes too.
I played 2 maps worth of the first game campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Had fun during the first one.
The first one's campaign is not much of a campaign, right? It's just kind of
like
a series.
It's just like battles. Yeah, played one.
Because the second one has an actual story. Not that it's like a story to run home from, but like it's like a story with like objectives and stuff in the mission. Like,
I should probably just skip and play that for a bit and see.
No, I mean, play both. There are aspects of one that I really, really like. Some of those maps I love. Some of those loadouts I love.
I do like the Naboo like courtyard map, which was the second mission, the second one that I played.
That one's cool. My 2 favorite maps from the original one, or my 2 favorite maps, period. It's actually, I think both Bespin maps. Because both
I remember those
are like it's like if you did World War I trench warfare with laser guns.
Yeah,
because like both of them have either like a long corridor in the middle or whatever, or a couple of like so the actual Cloud City one is the platform one. I think was my real favorite one. You could jump in ships and fly from one side to the other, whatever. You shoot, attack, whatever, and like that was fun. But the main 2 platforms, there's a bridge between the 2 of them, and it's just it's like a knife fight. It's
Yeah.
just insane. It's just a all-out brawl.
I remember that being
and
so much fun.
The same thing with the city streets one, which has like an upper level terrace and a lower level. There's one main L-shaped hallway where there's two bases on either side and one base in the middle, and you have to fight like a tug of war battle over control for that middle one along those L-shaped corridors. And it's just the intensity of the fighting in those two maps is just ridiculous. I loved both of those. Those are my two favorite like map playing experiences in the whole game series. Good. And I love the second game because like they took the mechanics of that game, they elevated it in a way in the second one where it's like it's a substantial upgrade in the gameplay itself. I don't think there's any one standout map in the same way. Probably the closest replication of that is the Camino map, because it has a similar concept to the platform map where you have, now it's different because it's all spider web. You can kind of walk your way around the whole map if you want to, but it takes time, and time is lives, right? You know, so the quickest way is to try and battle your way up through the middle to gain control of that central base, and the fighting is just so insanely furious in that. It's a lot of fun.
I think I'll have a little bit more fun playing, like maybe with you, or like playing with people like on an actual game versus like what I did so far. I will say though, I got motion sick on the second map, which is why I stopped playing.
Okay.
I don't know why. It seems, from what I understand, it was like updated to 60 FPS and it should be fine. I don't know what it is, but like I felt it like in my gut. I was like, oh, I do not feel well like after playing it.
It's funny. You remember I had horrendous issues with that as a kid, and I remember it never bothered you. And even into like adulthood, actually, I remember I never finished Quantum Break because that game made me really nauseous. I don't know why.
And I'm pretty sure that game was 60 FPS also. So I'm wondering if maybe it's that level of frame rate that is not sitting well.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that that's supposed to be smoother and, you know, better and what, like, you know, quote unquote better. But for some reason, I noticed it. The other one, so Elio is like slightly getting into like trying to play games. I showed him a game, which I'll talk about next, called Dead Cells, and I just showed it to him because there was like a little funny character and I thought he would like it. And sure enough, he like picked it up and he was like walking the character back and forth and thought it was the best thing. And every once in a while he asks, hey, can we go play the game with the man? And that's the game. But then I also was like, well, if you like this, let me show you Mario 64 because I have that on the Switch. I let him play that and he loves like walking him around. Asks me to do certain things like, hey, can you go down the slide? Can we go do the snow? Like all those different things.
That's the right type of game for someone his age where it's like you can run around, it's pretty low stakes, you know.
Yeah. That being said, he does well with Dead Cells. Like he was jumping over obstacles and breaking down doors, and I was like, I don't understand how you're getting this, but you're getting it and I love it.
I mean, any sort of platform, I mean, I don't know anything about that game, but any sort of platformer thing is a thing that you get, like, you know, you don't have the motor control to be doing a shooter or anything like that. Right? You know, it's
So we play that, but Super Mario 64 is another one where I've noticed it before this particular time playing it. But that game also, as an adult, makes me motion sick.
Playing which game?
It's Mario 64.
Okay.
And even, I mean, within like 3 minutes.
Really?
I'm out. I can't do it. Like it gives me a headache and it makes me feel like I'm going to throw up.
What I think it is, at least with Quantum Break, what I noticed was I don't think that the movement of the character was super responsive to what I was doing. So in my mind, I was
like a disconnect.
Yeah, I was like, I remember like the issue being like I'm walking around and like okay, I'm pressing left to turn left, and the character is turning like a boat, and I've already like trying to like look to the next thing, and there's like a lag behind what the character was doing, what I'm doing, and it was causing a disconnect in my head where like
it's like a syncing problem. It's like the same thing as like if I watch a movie that the audio is out of sync for too long, I have to stop. Like something is wrong, I have to fix it.
Otherwise, so that ends up being more not like I don't get like motion sickness from that, but it is distracting when I see that sort of thing, and it's a frustration to me where it's like it keeps drawing my eye to their mouth. I shouldn't be staring at this person's mouth because I know it's subconsciously that they're not working properly. Like it just gets very annoying.
In those moments, I am blown away at the fact that it works most of the time.
Yeah, sure.
Right, that's just pretty cool. But yeah, that's I know what you're talking. That disconnect of it not doing exactly what you like in like the split second.
Yes.
Of doing what you think it should be doing is your brain anticipating something, and I think your eye going to expect it, and then doesn't happen, which makes you readjust. And the rapid rate of doing that, it's almost dizzying.
Yes.
And then you want
not almost that's what's happening.
Yeah,
like you're getting dizzy from that because I don't know if it's just literally your eyes moving or if it creates a lack of trust within your own sense of self.
Yeah.
That, because this is disoriented, I am now disoriented.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it's a symbiotic thing, I don't know. But yeah, I think that's what it is. I haven't although I will say, when I first started playing, so I jumped right into Battlefront 2. I jumped right into Galactic Conquest. I just played on my own locally because like that was always one of my favorite like things to do because you can engage with it for as long as you want. You get a mixture of different maps, space battles, whatever. There's a very, very light amount of strategy. It's like very watered down, like Stratego or chess or whatever, type of thing. And I did notice after playing for about 20 minutes, it wasn't that I was like motion sick to the point of like feeling nauseous, but I get that sense of it when it's at its lowest level. What I get is I feel like my body starts getting a little overheated. Like I get a little bit of like that, like kind of like low level sweat that like, it's just like it's just uncomfortable feeling.
The galactic sweats.
Yes, exactly. And so anyway, I played that a bit, and then because I think it came out. Well, we were recording right on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it came out that night.
Came out that night, so I set up to download. I played it on Saturday for probably an hour and a half. I had a good time with it. And then the next week, me and Dominic and one of his friends got together. We played another Galactic Conquest and 2 controllers, split screen. Every round someone sat, the next person came in, and we just kind of went through and played a bunch, like that for a couple hours, and it's really good to get that nostalgia kick of going back. And it's not just nostalgia; it's still legitimately very fun. Yeah. I was a little worried actually when watching the trailer. It actually doesn't look bad. Like what they've done to upscale the it's
the
still
textures and stuff.
They polished it nicely. It's
as good as it's going to be for something that is that old.
Yeah. Absolutely, I was pleasantly surprised.
It looks how you remember it looking.
It looks how you remember it looking, but modernized.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I'm gonna give it a couple more tries. I also don't know. Like, it could have just been the timing too, because it doesn't always happen to me. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
I haven't tried the online yet. I know when I was reading that Thursday, on the night it launched, they only had like 3 dedicated servers, so there was a lot of matchmaking issues. I don't know if they've corrected that in the 2 weeks since or whatever.
I'm sure they have. It's enough time to correct it.
But as far as me playing it locally, I didn't encounter any issues. So
cool. And then the final thing, which I briefly mentioned already, is I got into this game called Dead Cells. It's it's not new by any stretch. It's old. It's a few years old at this point.
You mentioned it when we were texting with Brian the other day.
Yeah, so it's got me excited in the same way this other game that I used to play. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, called Vampire Survivors.
That's right. You mentioned that too.
I have it's thematically it's kind of like fun. I feel like it kind of crosses over like certain lines where the two line up in my mind. But what's exciting about it for me is it's run based. It's like it's a roguelike. So each time you play, when you die, you go all the way back to the beginning.
Those sorts of games always frustrated me.
But the level but the game itself is not the same. So like things are not all in the same spots. And the levels are different when you go through them. So like you're playing to progress and see how far you can get and ultimately unlock things and learn things and things that make it easier or let you get further.
Those sorts of things always frustrate me so much. I want, like, I don't have a problem with games having like limited amounts of saves or whatever, but I like that after a certain amount of progress, I will then be able to continue to progress on and I won't be sent back to the beginning. Like,
normally I would agree with you, except that the game does it in such a way where the actual act of playing the game is the appealing piece of it more than like where it's going to go. So each time, like I'm playing it, I'm having fun, and I'm like wrecking these enemies, and I'm getting really like I'm like finding these new weapons that I've never used before, and like finding out, oh, like you can get these different buffs on them if you do different things, and like how like, oh, now all of a sudden like I feel like a god character, and I can just like knock things out with like one shot, and then like, oh, what's this chest? Oh, it's cursed, and it's like, if you get hit once before you kill 10 enemies, you are going to die. I'm like, oh, good lord.
Okay.
So like, I'll like to do things like that. And then you're getting your way through and like you reset and you get back to the beginning. But there's certain things, you reach certain points in the game where you'll unlock something that's like permanent unlock.
Mm-hmm.
So now you have that. And then you have that to go through as you're learning the new things. So like, what's interesting is like you play a zone, and then the zone has like various exit points that will bring you to a different zone. You start to learn what each of those zones can have for you to do, and which one you might want to or not want to go to based on like the way that you've built your character out, like which weapons that you've slotted in, or which perks that you've kind of amplified throughout the way. And then each time you go through one of these zones, you go back to this like section in between where you can spend some of your cells and unlock something. You can grab an upgrade. You can refill your health flask and move on. And it's just been like, I found the loop to be like very captivating, where like you play through it and like just at the point where I feel like, okay, I don't know how much longer I'm going to stick with this. The game changes just enough to be like, I got to play another round. Like knowing that I want to do something different this time. And like, I was like, first off, it starts with you like, oh, different types of weapons. And it's like, oh, the weapon types change. Oh, you have different options. Oh, how am I going to play that? Oh, I could upgrade them differently. Oh, they have different buffs. Like these are like the various like progressions that have happened. And then it got to the point where it's like, okay, well, now that I understand like this concept, I could burn through this first section like very easily. It's still fun, but I burn through it and I'm looking for things now. I'm like less worried about dying because I'm like, I know how to handle all of this stuff, and I'm just like exploring. And then you find something else, and then like, wow, this weapon does like 6 times the amount of damage as like what I'm used to from the previous times playing this game, because I've gotten that far ahead now. And like, it gets like more interesting. Like, oh, well, now that I have this, that one thing that bested me a while back, when I get to that, I feel like I'll be able to deal with it. And sure enough, like knocked it out, no problem. So like, it's cool to see like how it pieces together and like how you are ultimately like learning to play the game through the iterations. And it's really fun.
That does actually sound like a more interesting way to do that sort of thing. Like that could work like that.
Yeah. And like the run can be, 5 minutes, 30 minutes. Like that's at least what I've experienced. Like that's like, so like, if you have a bite-sized time to play a run, see how far you get. Pause it if you want and come back later. Like it doesn't matter. Like it really doesn't matter. Because if you die, you know what it is? It's funny. Like the penalty of death, it's like, oh man, I don't get to move on. But when you get back to the beginning, you're like, I think I'm going to roll this character differently next time. Like I want, okay, that thing worked for me. This thing didn't work for me. Ooh, I really enjoyed like having this ice power. I'm going to seek those out this time around again, because I had fun with, like, it's really cool. And then like you start to realize that like if you get certain weapons like leveled up to certain points, they could like help each other. Like if you like put a freeze on somebody, something might do more damage when enemies are frozen, or when they thaw, they might bleed. So like you could freeze somebody and then stand back and let them bleed to death. Like it's really interesting. Like there's lots of like random strategies that you can come up with. And it's the same type of thing that I loved about Vampire Survivors, was choosing like, okay, how am I going to play this run? And then something really ridiculous would happen. You'd like enter a new place that you've never been before. Like that's what happens in the game. And it's like, it's really entertaining, to the point where it's like, I'm not quite sure what I'm playing it for. Like, I don't really know, like if I even care what the end game is. I just like the loop of play, have fun, destroy these enemies, learn something new, move on to the next thing, discover a new thing, move on. Like
that aspect is interesting too, right? Because like if you play like a round of Battlefront, right? There's no story, there's no progression. Yeah. It's just, did you win? Did you lose? Did you kill everyone? Did you try a different character maybe? But like ultimately, it's still the same thing. And then you've reset and you've started a different round. It's
and this works for me in a single player context. Like the Battlefront thing works for me in a multiplayer context, playing with friends or like kind of casual like that. But this is something else where it's like I can get lost in it for 1 run or 6 runs and have a good time. It's fun, but I recommend.
Okay.
Cool. Any other consumption?
Just some solid food options lately. I
Ooh,
had
what'd you have? What'd you
I
have?
went to there's this I would call it a Japanese restaurant, but it's got kind of all different sorts of Asian cuisine. It was actually kind of cool. It was helpful on the menu. It was like there were certain sections or like certain dishes where it was like Chinese, Korean, Thai, Indonesian, even, which I was surprised. But there's a place not far from where I live that I've lived here for almost 25 years. It's almost 23 years.
Wow.
And I've never been to this place. It's been there pretty much the whole time, I think. Maybe more than the whole time. I don't know. And we went for Dominic's birthday dinner the other night. Really good food, man. Really good. Cool. It's a little bit throwback, but it's also like, it's kind of a cool nostalgic towards like that whole like aspect of having like a very like the decor matches the whole experience and all that. Really good. We did a little bit of axe throwing after that. And then we had dinner at home with family the next day. My brothers always loved crab legs. My dad bought way too many crab legs. We ate them all.
I was gonna say you can't have too many crab legs.
I had, I think, 5 crabs worth of crab legs.
Nice.
It's like 10 bunches of legs.
I mean, that to me sounds like you did it right.
It was so much. It was so much crab.
I love crab.
It was so good.
Crab greater than lobster.
I like different parts of different. Like having a lobster tail is good. I love a lobster claw, but I love the experience of the whole claw and legs of the crab more than just having the whole lobster, I would say. If you're just isolating the lobster claw, I think that's pretty.
That's your favorite?
Spectacular, like chunk of.
For me, it's the taste of crab all the way. Okay,
that's fair. I really like both. I view them as similar but not the same experience. But it was a lot. I don't remember if it was. I want to say it was snow crab, but I'm not 100% sure. So pretty sizable legs and claws and all that.
Nice.
It was definitely an experience. Plus, it was a little surf and turf action, some filet mignon.
Sure.
Alongside.
If you're gonna do it, right?
The filet was cooked to perfection. The other steak was a little overdone. I made some like sweet potato, like roasted potatoes, and all that sort of stuff, and garlic bread and all that. So that was
delightful.
That was delightful. And then the week before, massive amounts of corned beef. Way too much corned beef for St. Patty's Day.
Oh man, I did make a corned beef hash with jalapenos.
Nice. I didn't get to have a hash. I did get to have leftover a few days later Reuben. So that's if we have any left over past the Reuben stage, I'll make one. But we had some. We had some hefty Reubens. Yeah.
Amazing.
Is this bread going to sustain this Reuben?
Yeah. That's what the fork and knife are for.
I don't like it as the open face. I like them as an actual sandwich, like a panini style sandwich where you like fry both sides and all that.
Yeah, that's good. So. That sounds good. I haven't had one of those in a long time. I haven't had we used to every once in a while, like back in the day, we used to have like pastrami on rye, at home, and I like that.
You've got 50% of what you need to go. 40% of what you need to go into a rib.
Good stuff.
But yeah, so a lot of corned beef. A lot of corned beef. That's it.
All right. Well, with that, let us get into our flick of the week. The Creator, released in 2023, rated PG-13 with a 2-hour and 13-minute runtime. Your IMDb synopsis. Against the backdrop of war between humans and robots with artificial intelligence, a former soldier finds the secret weapon, a robot in the form of a young child.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. I guess all you could maybe fit in a blurb. I'm not really quite sure how you explain the nuance or depth in the description, but
not much of a secret weapon, and so far as like actual weapon,
a known weapon, secret quantity. I don't know. Why don't you give us your hot take?
A throwback sci-fi action flick with a new school action star. The Creator doesn't redesign the wheel, but it proves you can make a slick cinematic experience without breaking the bank. 6.5 out of 10.
Cool. With the sensibilities of Garland, the style of Blomkamp, and the soul of Cameron, The Creator feels like a passion project created by a seasoned sci-fi movie buff, flexing heart and experience over budget. 7 out of 10.
Okay, so pretty similar.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here.
This is just like a solid movie. Like
it's a good like on the scale of 10, if 7 is good, like that's not a bad thing. It's a good movie.
Yeah, my criticism, or sorry, it's not criticism. My score is not reflective of, oh, this is a bad movie. No,
Yeah,
just good, solid. It just wasn't great. Like it wasn't like blown away. Like, oh my god, I have to watch. This is like one of my favorite movies. I have to watch it all the time.
yeah.
I would definitely watch it again if I just saw it on TV. I'd throw it on.
Yeah, I think like as soon as like when it ended, I was like, man, that felt like a solid 8. And then like a day or two passed, and I was like, let it settle and think. I'm like, 7. 7 feels right.
Yeah.
7 feels.
I
Good.
watched this that day a couple months ago when I was sick. I don't 100% remember the order. I remember I definitely watched Rebel Moon first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't remember which was second and third. I watched this and I watched Across the Spider-Verse.
Mm.
And I texted you and I said, I watched 3 movies today. One was bad, one was good, and one was great.
This was the good one.
And I think I said, these are the 3 movies. I'll let you guess which one was which. This is the good one. I was like, oh, I was pleased with it after I was done. I was definitely intrigued by the trailer. I was entertained by the movie. I do remember, like we talked about it a while ago, I'm genuinely shocked by how good so much of this looks for, again, it's $85 million budget, which, like, it's a lot of money, but not for an action movie.
Right. Not for an action movie that looks that good. Either.
Not for an action movie that, A, looks that good, and B, has a couple of pretty big stars, not a ton of mega stars.
It's got some names.
But, like, John David Washington is really moving up the ranks. Ken Watanabe, known quantity. Gemma Chan, been in some big stuff now. Like,
Gemma Chan, a Marvel double dipper.
Yes, one of the rare crew of double dippers.
Yeah. It was. I mean, all in all, a really entertaining watch. It was a 2-session watch for me because I was doing it in my mornings. But not because the movie required me to stop. But my timeline did. And I couldn't wait to get back and finish it. I was like, I am in. Like, this is really entertaining. I bring up the sensibilities of Garland because the underlying question that of like, okay, at what point is it not a computer by our standard terms of computer is definitely there. And I think the thing that maybe can help it push further into like the 8s and 9s territory is if they gave that a little bit more focus.
There's definitely some spiritual overlap between this and Ex Machina, but I don't think it plumbs quite the depths that movie.
No,
I mean, it definitely had some interest in doing some nuanced discussion of
it. Does it silently, which I think is what's interesting. Like, they bring it up, like, kind of, but like it's really the internal struggle of the lead character of John David Washington's character of like of how he's coming to grips with it and actively changing his opinion along the way. Like the first thing that happens he's part of the military group that is here to wipe out the robots, right? That's where he starts. He's undercover and falls in love with a person who is actively trying to keep the robots alive, for lack of a better word. And I think that's the first signs of the foundations breaking, right? Of like, well, okay, I love this person. Love is interesting and it will make you more accommodating to other things that you maybe had not considered. And I feel like that's where it's like, he doesn't really show it, but I think it's starting. I think he would rather the mission fail than lose this person because he does love this person. He then gets thrown back into like not giving a shit because she presumably gets wiped out along with a whole bunch of other people when they strike too soon or without warning. And then ultimately meets this character who is the weapon, who is also actually his child's mind grown as an artificial intelligence, which really starts to really blur the lines for him up to the point where he's able to come like fully around and separate the concept of the machine from, I don't know, the soul. But like all of this happens quietly.
Yeah.
But it's on his face.
Yeah, well, I think we get to see those things, like you said, on his face and among other things, as that kind of expands and grows over
some
time.
of his choices and execution
versus like feeling a lot more of and some of it's through world building, some of it's through plot and character of what I forget what terms they use, but let's just call them the robots for lack of a better word, because it's a couple months ago. So
simulants,
was it that what it was?
Yeah, or I don't know if the simulants were the ones that look like people and like, because there was some that had the skin like they're like over them.
Yeah, the ones that had like the replicated
those I think
faces.
were simulants. I don't know if they called the other robots by the same term.
So let's just use robots for all of those people. Whatever. Like watching their evolution of their characters as we see some of the stories and the propaganda being told by both sides in this situation, but specifically the propaganda told by the human anti-robot people about the robots, and then seeing in the end. I mean, I don't want to skip to the end, but it's a decent plot twist at the end. What and who the creator is, and what the state of being of all of that is, and finding the compassion and also the programming, the mixture of those two things, right? Knowing that these robots can't or won't hurt unless pushed to that level, and understanding these things about paranoia, justifiable paranoia. I mean, like, there is, as much as the humans are the quote unquote bad guys in this movie, we will find as time goes on.
Yeah,
there is real justifiable hurt on their side too, and over a simple misunderstanding. But you can understand how your prejudice and fear would lead you to that, where it's not invalid why they feel that way, even though they're working on a faulty premise.
Yeah, I think it's funny because like these, like the undertones, like and the things that are like very softly stated in the movie, I think are the most interesting pieces of it. Like what I mentioned before with our leads, like reactions and actions throughout that aren't necessarily spoken, and like seeing him evolve. The other one, the throwaway line that the nuking of LA was a programming error, not the machines doing something that they
that's what I was getting at, about like the justifiable, hatred and fear of the humans.
Interesting.
But, they don't know better. And all along, I suspected it was going to be one of those things where it was propaganda and they were just using it as a convenient excuse. No, they probably legitimately don't know. And so their fear and hate is, if not justifiable, certainly understandable.
Mm-hmm.
You can empathize with the situation they're in. And to find that out in the end, that no, this is just the worst miscommunication imaginable, because millions of people died.
Yeah.
But there's no way to put the genie back in the bottle in this situation. There's no way to close Pandora's box. There's no way to say, hey, no, we didn't actually nuke millions of you. It was just a line of code. We can see it. We'll show it to you right here. It's our bad, but not then, really our bad. You know what I mean? It's like
you see how the humans are acting and reacting and playing off fear and propaganda, and then it sparks the other questions that are not explored at all in the movie of like, well, was this like political engineering, like this?
Well, I assumed it was going to be one of those situations, right, where it's like a self-inflicted wound for the purposes. But to find out that it's not, actually, what I found to be more interesting, because we've seen other versions of that story before, to see the evolution of how broken telephone on the scale of millions it's impossible to fix, because you can never restore that trust. There's no vehicle to restore that trust between those two sides, and the robots don't want to kill the humans, but they also don't want to die themselves, so they won't stop fighting, because if they do, they will be exterminated.
I think they did a really good job of humanizing the robots in their reactions to almost dying, and then seeing some of the choices that the robots are making them feel even more human. I think one of the ones that comes to mind was when one of the robots is trying to run into a safety net where some other people are, realizing that it's tagged by Nomad, and ultimately running the other way to save the people. And I feel like that, like, just Like there's moments
Yes.
of that throughout the movie that like really
Especially
make it stand out.
those were human sympathizers, right? That they were saving, or
Yeah.
a combination of robots and human sympathizers, right?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
where, the most human sacrifice by the most supposedly inhuman being.
Yep.
It's that was where the storytelling was its strongest.
And then to make the viewer feel something when the hunk of metal is blown off screen, like well done, like
Yeah.
really well done. There are some really interesting things in here. I will say, so the other piece of my hot take that I brought up was like the Blomkamp style, because the
robots
special
reminded me of
effects,
Chappie.
yeah, very, very much. Well, yeah, District 9 Chappie, like all of that style, like those that like it, not even just the robots themselves, but the obvious visual effects of the environment that are like, if you really pay attention, you can see the seams because they're like almost hyper realistic.
Mm.
Where it's like it somehow makes it less realistic. It's like certain bits of it, but it's not a problem because the whole movie is in that style where it's consistent and it feels good.
Consistent.
I think, and then one of the things that I was like, man, like how, like what do you do to make this happen? Like, how do you make a movie look like this? Because it's a great style. Like, it feels really good. It's enjoyable to watch it. Like, it absolutely brings you into the it immerses you in like what they're trying to pull. The idea that the director has a pretty significant background in visual effects, I think, goes a long way.
Sure.
And I think that's really cool to see that come through. And that's where like my point of like a movie buff, like I feel like you don't get into visual effects for movies unless you really like movies. Like I don't know. I like
Maybe
to go that specific route, and like then you could kind of see like, well, applying like having some direction in the application of those effects, like as you're also directing, knowing what can be done and what can be done well and can't be done well, I would assume is what translates to a solid direction of a movie like this.
Well, I think it also has to do with a certain strategic vision, right? These are all the things that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And again, it goes back to what we were talking about with the Acolyte trailer. The Acolyte show. Knowing I want to accomplish X, Y, and Z. X needs to be on a set. Y needs to be practical, and Z needs to be aided by computer-generated imagery.
Yeah.
And knowing those things, being able to effectively communicate those things, and then being able to properly budget your time and money to do those things is how you make a pretty damn good movie on a budget that is big, but not gargantuan.
Right.
And feel like it's an effective use of those resources in a way where you're getting the maximum amount of bang for your buck, right?
Yeah, for sure. Speaking the VFX language, I think that absolutely helps in that, because you can pre-plan for that versus say, I don't know, anything post Infinity Saga MCU where it's like, we're going to do this, that, and the other thing, and we're going to do it fast, and we don't have time to actually and then you end up with this like hobbled together mess because you've got 4 million people working on it with an email of an idea, and they're changing halfway shit
through. And the biggest thing is, it sounds like the post Infinity Saga issues have come down to a lack of vision on the front end that requires rushing on the back end, where they're giving the VFX people not a long enough time to execute the vision, and also often changing the vision when they're halfway through the work. This whole reshoot and rewrite stuff after the movie's been done because of either a lack of confidence in what they're doing or a lack of vision when they started the project.
Man, in that whole thing, you mentioned lack of vision and execution of vision, both things that happen in the MCU.
Yeah.
Paul.
But
there,
I going back to so bad. I
was proud of it.
No, it was one of those so bad it's good, for sure. There are movies that have little to no CGI, and they're great. There are movies that are inundated with CGI, and they're great. I think it's really hard when it comes to an action movie to do it all one or all the other way.
Yeah.
The one thing I will pretty unequivocally give to the sequel trilogy of Star Wars movies is I thought that almost without fail, they executed the blending of those two styles together into a way that made sense. I really think that from a logistical standpoint, they had, even if they didn't always have a vision for the story and the characters, they had a vision for how they would execute those stories and characters in a way that made sense in their making of it and in our seeing of it. And this movie obviously does that on a slightly smaller scale. Fairly smaller scale, let's call it. And I think it's a testament to it. I'm appreciative of the technical work that goes into of all that. Even though I don't know all the nitty-gritty details of it, just like being able to appreciate them making a series of choices and doing them in the proper way to give you a movie that when it's delivered at the end feels largely seamless.
Yeah, for sure. On the notion of like special effects, this is where like the Cameron aspect comes in for me, and it might not be what you think. It's not necessarily just like the sci-fi aspect of it, or like some of the gravity of the situations, which all are very like Terminator 2 like vibes. But it's the Terminator 2 thing that stands out to me the most of all this. It's not even the robots. It's the terror that the weapons inflict on me when I'm watching it. That light and sound and lack of sound that Nomad does before striking something off the planet is horrifying. Like, and it's so well done that anytime you see the light, I'm like not ready for it.
It connoted a kid with a magnifying glass over an anthill, but if the magnifying glass delivered like nuclear holocaust instead of just focused sun rays.
Yeah, it was just so thoughtless. I don't know. It was definitive. It was scary. It was like really every time it happened, I was like, it like made me crawl out of my skin. I was like, because like you think about it, like through the lens of the people on the ground watching, it's like there's no time, there's no option, no way to avoid it. So like once you see it's happening, it's too late, and like that's like that 10 seconds is an eternity before it happens. And like they really played that well, and like that came through.
Yeah, and it's as horrifying as devastating as the weapon is. It was an ingenious invention, and my appreciation as like watching the film, just I appreciated the concept going into the making of it, and how all encompassing it was, and yet still felt vaguely realistic. Like, not to say like, oh yeah, we could just like have that tomorrow, but like it didn't feel like a total MacGuffin, right? It felt like it was grounded in some sort of, oh, that would be something I could see being the type of weapon that would exist at some point.
Right.
The not too distant future.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so like I've talked about like a little bit about the Garland sensibilities, the Blomkamp style, the Cameron soul. You sprinkle a little Hans Zimmer in there. Baby, you got a stew going. The music was great. This is one of the ones where when I started watching the movies, I realized I had heard the music before because it had come up on my movie playlists.
By the way,
yeah,
I watched Gladiator. That song, that we heard in your car, definitely from Gladiator.
Okay.
Also, cool. I had watched the first Pirates of the Caribbean a few days before that.
Also in that song.
No.
Okay.
That song is legitimately just from Gladiator.
Really? The whole thing?
But that song sounds an awful lot like
Interesting.
the Pirates of the Caribbean.
Okay.
Which came out whatever it was, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. They're rebooting that.
They're rebooting it again?
Yeah.
Or well, I guess there was the sequels or whatever. They're really rebooting that?
They requeled it. Now they're rebooting it.
That's stupid.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. But those movies were fun. The original, like 2 or 3.
The first one is a legitimately excellent movie.
Yeah.
The second and third one were fine.
Yep.
And I never really saw the fourth.
I think I may have seen more, but I don't really remember.
I saw parts of one of the.
I love the first one though. Like the first, especially the introduction of that song. Like it's just
a fantastic theme.
So
a bunch
good.
of the themes actually are pretty
good. They are. They're really well done. Okay, so back to the creator. It's broken up into 3 titled acts, right? Like it was the creator, the child, the
Oh, that's
mother.
right. I
Those
forgot
were
about that. Yeah.
those were the title cards that we got, right? So I think it's interesting that you spend that first act kind of getting acquainted with like the world that we're in. We talk about Nirmata, who is like the creator of the AI, and like I guess like not too much about it, but like that's where it all like kind of stems from. You have this concept of like the sympathizers and the concept of the people that want to wipe these things off the planet, because there's a lack of trust due to some not apocalyptic, but like pretty massive attack that happened, which was like the nuking of LA, I believe.
Yeah.
And you are introduced to a character who is worth following through this because he gets to experience all parts of this world that we're building. Of like, he is from the place where they do not sympathize with the AI, but he is undercover and living with people and that do sympathize and with AI. And he is his family were direct victims of the LA bombing, and therefore he is like an emotional victim of the LA bombing. Oh, actually, physical too. He lost an arm and leg.
Yeah.
Which they don't spend too much time on it, but I do think it's intentional that he is 20% robot.
I also think that was a very Wiccan way of like world building to give you like character and narrative information.
Yeah, which is cool. Like it's just like let's like it is if you're they because they don't have a lot. They don't really have the conversations at all about like the like what makes it like where is the line drawn. But they give you all of the ingredients to talk about it,
which is why I said Wiccan, because that was very much that language and storytelling of that series.
I appreciated that a lot. I didn't really reflect on that too much until we brought it up here, but that's cool. And it's like, well, if you so let's go 20%. Now let's go 90%. And like how does that make you feel? Let's go like 100%. What does 100% mean? And like that's like where the questions come in of like what's an AI.
Well, I guess we're also bumping up against the idea of the whole ship of Theseus, right? You know, when something is created from scratch, it's a robot, and when it's someone that's born, it's a human. But if you replace enough parts of a human with a robot, or if you take a robot and you put it into parts of the human, what is it? A human? Is it a robot? Is it something in between?
Right.
What threshold? What percentage? Is it the mind that matters? Is it the heartbeat that matters? What is it? The programming that matters? Is it the materials used? What are the most important things? Is it one of those I'll just know it when I see it situations? The lines are pretty blurry.
I am always down for a movie that, or like I don't know, piece of media that wants to dive deeper into those concepts because they're just so it's just so entertaining of a topic to explore, and I don't know, it's gets the noodle going, you know.
The noodle.
Yeah. You know how you say that? You know how you say the noodle referring to your brain?
Not since, I don't know, the 1980s or something, probably. But.
Oh, man. So that's the creator segment. We also, within that segment, John David Washington's, like, what's his name? Joshua? His whole world is turned upside down yet again in that the strike happens, and presumably his wife is wiped off the face of the earth, and so are some of the AI colleagues. He gets kind of brought back in to the military fold, and they want him on another mission because they want him to help them find Armada's base of operations so they can finally get this person that is like the leader of the AI and the creator of the AI. And we then move into our second act, which is the child, where he starts to help them execute this mission. They go on this hunt for this base. They find something. They get into it. They know that there's a weapon there. And when they find the weapon, it's a AI in the shape and size of a child. And what does that mean? And it's sitting in front of a TV and it's watching the TV, and it's very reminiscent of a Matrix like scene. I feel like just like that kind of like environment of like downloading from the world like type of thing, which I thought was really cool. And the child is just like, it's just ingesting all of this TV to like kind of like learn and grow its mind. And you get the hint of what the child can do, which is control machines.
Yeah.
A god of machines, if you will. God from the machine, if you will. I think there's a phrase for this. but that was pretty cool. And then the implications of it, it's like, I feel like what's cool about it is if you want to engage deeper with the concept, what that means is pretty dire, right? Like what that weapon can do in the wrong hands. Like we're constantly thinking about it from the scope of okay, how are they going to fight back against the humans with this? But like, what if AI uprises against AI? Like that could be used pretty damning for that type of war as well. Like it's interesting to consider, but it becomes very clear that the focal point of the power of this weapon is that it can take out this giant ship that they're able to just wipe things off the planet whenever they want with. And that in itself is enough to drive the story forward without lingering too much. And it doesn't, the movie wastes no time. It doesn't like sit in any one of these spaces, for better or worse, right? It doesn't like let you like breathe in any of those spaces.
Well,
for
not
too
narratively
long.
anyway. It does spend a few minutes wallowing. Well, not wallowing, because that has a negative connotation. Like just settling into some of the character moments. I think.
Yeah, here and there.
Which, considering most of Maya's stuff was flashback. It's an understandable. Like, it's really the only way you can engage with why we should care about Joshua's split nature of these two things is to see what he's dealing with now versus what he may have thought then versus how he gets caught up between those two things via the window into that world with him falling in love with Maya when he's supposed to be infiltrating that organization.
Right. And then, so we get introduced to the child. And Joshua goes through this arc of kind of being on board with the mission, but then, not on board with the fact that this weapon is shaped like a child, and which is like enough to start tipping, I feel like, the scales and get him thinking a little bit deeper about what it means, which ultimately is what leads him to kind of changing sides, or like more definitively changing sides, I guess.
Well, it
seems like he was inching there, then got pulled back, and then like thrown into it again.
He definitely yo-yos, which I don't think is super common, right? Usually it's someone flip sides, or maybe like they're left on like the brink of will I, won't die, and then they choose one side or whatever. He's starts on the military side, goes over, kind of is on the brink of going over to their side, then ends up on no one's side, then is back on the military side, and then ends the most firmly on the robot side after all of is said and done.
Yeah, and then I think that was a really like the interesting concept of so we move into the third act with the mother, which is titled The Mother, and that's where we find that Maya is Nirmata, formerly her father was, and
Creator is apparently a title you could inherit.
Yeah, which is cool. So what was interesting, and that she's not actually alive, but on life support.
Yeah,
and that was interesting. And then the child, was it who actually? No, Joshua is the one that downloads her consciousness, right? Or her whatever her mind map, like whatever they didn't actually name the thing that they're doing.
Yeah, I guess so. I think
he plugs it in, and then I guess, but the kid is the one that takes it and then puts it in one of the robots that was made to her likeness.
Yeah, I'm gonna be hazy on some of those details because I did watch it a couple months ago and I've only seen it the one time. So
that's fine. So he runs away with it and plugs it in and downloads to the robot that has her likeness, her actual skin faces on the robot, and she lives again. And that's the thing that's like, okay, if you're having the conversation, it's like, okay, like you start like in phases, right? Like it's a robot that can think. Is it any more or less human than you, right?
You take it from it's a robot that can think to it's a robot that can feel.
Yeah. To a robot that can feel. Like you do that to a robot that seems to be making emotional decisions over logical decisions, to a robot that is in fact the continuation of the person that died.
Yeah.
So then what is it? And I feel like that like they're showing evolution of a thing throughout the movie, which is another thing that they're doing semi-quietly. But if it's there, if you're paying attention, and you can dive deeper on it. And I thought that was really interesting. And by that point, at the end of the movie, they're on Nomad. It's going down. Joshua is up there, and he like re-embraces with robot Maya. But at that point, it's the same person to him. Yeah. Like he made it all the way through to the other side of being like, it doesn't matter. Like this is like, you are who you are. Like that's like what it seems like he comes down to. And I thought that it was really cool to see the character. Like you said, yo-yo was like the great word for it, but like he does seem to go, it's like no in the beginning, and then like yes, no, as it's going on to yes. Like that's like that's where eventually like they stop playing with you.
Yeah.
They walk the dog for a little bit there in between the first and second act, but it comes back up. It's a whole thing. But it was really cool. I think one of the other things that I liked was like, was it Harun Ken Watanabe's character?
Yeah.
I like that. Like even like it. If you're paying attention to like where the characters are developing, we watch Joshua going like from the human side over to embracing the AI side. And then you see Ken's character, because I can't Harun, I don't know if I'm saying it right.
I think that's
go kind of experiencing the same thing in the other direction. I feel like where it's not that it was like a full on, like the people have to go. But it was like, because it wouldn't be that far along based on like the way it started, and they have people that they like live with and trust. But like seeing that a person can come full circle, he comes full circle on that same person. I think that was like, it was really cool to see that mirror image. I feel like they're a similar character, just on opposite sides of the spectrum, like learning and kind of growing in the same way. Joshua has a much like longer path to go, because I feel like
I actually looked at it as kind of an expression, as not as opposed to like as two characters on opposite ends of the same coin, but more as the two of their relationship showed the pros and cons of humans versus robots, where Joshua is, even though tries to be very stoic, is a very emotional character who goes through a very emotional journey. And it's him getting pulled back and forth and trying to grapple with the logic of one side versus the other, versus Harun being a more, being a robot character and being very pragmatic, not being really able to access emotion, starting to understand it a bit without fully being able to embrace it in the way that a human is, just in the same way that a human is not fully able to embrace the logic of a robot, right? Where like he has some things where he comes to understand like what Joshua's gone through, even if he can't feel it.
Sure.
And having, there are limitations because he's programmed on what he can and can't do. But the one thing he can do is accept a certain set of facts leading to someone making a decision and try to work within that framework, right? Because like that's ultimately what, they're met with odds that seem impossible, and yet he keeps fighting that fight, which would seem an emotional thing, but for him it's just within the framework of I live or I die. I do the thing that seems right or I don't do the thing that seems right. He tries to do the right thing. He doesn't feel it, but he can think it logically. I thought they foiled each other very well in that way.
I don't know about the like whether or not he feels it though, because I feel like the thing that they kind of touch on with the child is that if you can program the physical reactions to the emotion, like, and the character then and the robot is able to go through, like, ultimately trigger one of those, is that a feeling? And if so,
well, that's the point when we get to the idea of a highly complex simulated intelligence or artificial intelligence. You can program preferences. You can create feedback loops that will say, okay, when I do this, a rewarding thing has happened, and so I would like to do that again. But they don't actually like it. It's just that there is a positive reinforcement. And you can argue on the human side, the release of serotonin when you're happy is a programmed feedback loop to get you to do that thing again. It's more complicated than that, and what can trigger those things is not ones and zeros in a human versus what it would be for a robot. So, like, there is always going to be that disconnect. But at what point is the differentiation really? The line can be blurred between a programmed by an outside individual person's the idea of like a feedback loop for like that sort of thing versus the chemistry, right? Like it's programming versus chemistry. It's not a one-to-one analogy.
Yeah. Or is it?
It's a close enough one for comparison, but can you ever truly, create an equal situation in that, It's not, even though they're similar, even though there's overlap, even though they're comparable, they're not synonymous.
Yeah. I think what's interesting though, I feel like, is if you consider like the mechanical versus the chemical, like what if you could synthesize the chemical?
Well, I don't think having the chemical like is a created compound is the important part, because it doesn't react with a robot brain or physiology, if you want to use that term, in the same way. I mean, I guess you could make it to do so, but does that actually mean?
Right, that's the question, right? Like that's like it just adds more questions.
This is either some conversation that should be happening in MIT or happening with some idiots outside smoking some weed. Either way, well, I don't know if we'll ever solve the answer in either scenario.
Not in our lifetime, I don't think.
Probably not.
But a scene that I loved was, because I didn't know where it was going to go. There's the standoff scene where we find that Maya is on the table, like being kept like on life support, kept alive. We learn that Haroon can't unplug her because he's like, this is like where like maybe some of the cracks show, but like there's still like we're not quite there yet. We're not to full autonomy because he is programmed to not be able to unplug her, right? Like,
yes, which even is what I was alluding to earlier,
right? Which he knows, like he seems to feel that it would be the right thing to do, for lack of a better word, but can't act on that, which is interesting. But then we get fucking Colonel Howell coming in, right? Just pointing guns, making threats. When he shoots that weird weapon gun thing that attaches to her back, and they go to like save her and rip it off her, I'm like, oh, okay, this is dumb. Like, man, I really wish that would explode, but they're just doing this so that they have enough time to run away while they're working on getting the thing. And then she explodes, and I went, oh my god!
Yeah, it was a pretty good shock value moment. And
I was like, that was great. I couldn't wait for her character to die. That was awesome. It's terrible. But yeah, I just lots to explore. Lots of deep conversations that I think you can have if you engage with it at the right level. But all in all, just a good movie, as we discussed in the beginning. Just a really good movie.
And the action sequences were cool. I mean, I like that whole read. I guess it's in the second chapter, right? was pretty well executed. I thought there was almost some, in some light ways, it almost reminded me a little bit of that end sequence in Tenet, with like watching like the whole like planning to go in, the the communication, they're working through the thing, what goes right, what goes wrong, and kind of the tension being ratcheted up throughout the course of what seems like a pretty straightforward mission at first, which proves to be anything but as it all unravels. So that was pretty cool. I thought the whole end sequence was very emotional as he takes her from the facility and they jump on their escape. They jump on the shuttle, getting up to what was the name of the satellite? I don't even remember what it's called.
Wait, the Nomad was the ship.
The Nomad, whatever.
Yeah.
So satellite ship, whatever. Yeah. I mean, the platform, I guess, is the best term for it. That whole sequence and them hacking it and the whole end game as everything should be logically able to be solved, but emotionally he knows the choice he has to make. Again, it comes down to that whole that dichotomy, I think, right? Where it's like, well, she has this power. They can just do anything. He's got the physicality to do what needs to be done, and yet they still can't make it work. And so he's got to make the emotional choice to let her go.
Yeah. That final, I don't know, boss battle with that weird tentacle monster remote robot tentacle monster, whatever that octopus thing was. That thing was terrifying. The humans made some really scary ass weapons in this movie.
Yeah, and their attempt to, I guess that's always the point, right? Is you create these things and then they rebel against you, and then you create worse things to deal with them or whatever.
Man, yeah, it was a fun watch. Thanks for bringing this one up.
Yeah, man, I enjoyed this. I feel like it didn't get a ton of promotion until those couple weeks before the movie came out. It wasn't on my radar in any way until I forget what movie I went to see in the theater, and I saw a trailer for it. I was like, I had no idea this was even a thing. And I feel like
I think that's point, like where the budget will hurt you, is if you don't have the ability to market it.
Although, to be fair, I think that's technically not supposed to go into the calculation.
That would be a separate budget.
Yeah.
Does it show on IMDb what the marketing budget is?
Or not usually.
Interesting. But yeah, any closing thoughts on this one?
No, I'm very curious where. I haven't looked at what upcoming projects he has. I'm very curious to see where John David Washington goes next, because he's got a couple of big movies under his belt now, which is funny to see after, like, my first concept of him was in Ballers, and I didn't realize he was. First of all, I didn't realize he was Denzel's son, and second of all, I didn't realize he was like a serious aspirant to like acting achievement, and here he is becoming somewhat of a movie star in a time where we're kind of debating whether that's something we're still doing, making movie stars. Yeah,
I think the first thing, I was looking at his list trying to see what the first thing is that I saw him in. What do we got here? I think maybe Black Klansman might have been the first one.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the first thing I watched with him. And then followed by Tenet.
Okay. So. Yeah, I still actually haven't gotten around to watching Black Klansman.
It's a heavy movie, but it's really well done.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get all that, and it's an interesting. It is something that I've.
It's like be emotionally prepared to watch it.
Well, that's part
that's
of
like
it, right?
The type of the thing. Cool. Well, that's all for this week's episode of Flix and a Six. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you have a movie for us to review or nuggets for us to discuss, you can send those requests to flixandasix@thespintune.com. Tune in next week for more movie and beer goodness. Until then, I'm Anthony Costanzo.
And I'm Al Biolsi.
Thanks for coming out.